ॐ नमो नारायणाय ॐ नमो नारायणाय
Welcome to part 2 of Vedangas, Introduction to Vedangas and Agamas. So we always start by remembering our teachers. Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Parama Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Sarva Gurubhyo Namaha. Reverence to our teachers, reverence to their teachers, and reverence to all teachers. The prayer of cooperation between students and teacher. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om. May the Lord protect us. May He nourish us. May we work with strong cooperation. May our study be dynamic and fruitful. May we not have disputes. Let us achieve individual peace, interactive peace, and environmental peace. So, welcome everybody. We're going to talk about Agamas primarily today. But just in the beginning, a little bit of a background of the previous class. Previous class, we talked about the forms of Vedic knowledge from the different types of pramanas. Pramanas, if you remember, the word pramana means methods of attaining true knowledge. And we went through the reasons for having pramanas, having a proper epistemology, and then all of the three pramanas that are accepted by Vaishnavas: pratyaksha, sense perception; anumana, logical inference; and ultimately shabda, which means authoritative statement. After we discussed about all that, then that took quite some time, and we then began to talk about the Vedangas. But first of all, we gave an introduction about the Vedas. So we described about how the Vedas were originally one, and that they represent the breathing of the Supreme Lord, and that they're unauthored, and that they're also called Svata Pramana, that they're self-proving, and that they're eternal. And after that, we described that there are Vedangas, or limbs of the Veda. There are 6 Vedangas, which are the things which help us to understand the Veda. So we described what they were, and we gave some pramanas, or we gave some proofs from different scriptures listing them. And so we can just have a look at that again. The pramana for the pramanas for the Vedangas, and the Vedangas are also helped by some other places of knowledge called the Vidyasthanas, or the places of knowledge. So we have actually we have 14 or even up to 18 listed Vidyasthanas. So we listed those also. All right, so we listed this pramana: Angani, Vedas Chatvaro, Mimamsa Nyaya Vishtaraha, Puranam Dharmashastram Cha, Vidya Hyetash Chaturdasa. The 4 Vedas, which were Rig, Yajus, Sama, and Atharva, which also have different sections to them: Samhita, Brahmana, Aranyaka, and Upanishad. The 4 Vedas, along with the 6 Vedangas, or supplements: Mimamsa, which means discussion, Vedic principles of analysis; Nyaya, logic; the Puranas. Now, in the Puranas, we also include Puranas and Itihasas. So we didn't talk about that last time, but actually there are 18 Mahapuranas and there are also Upapuranas or smaller Puranas, but there are 18 Mahapuranas and they're generally divided into three according to the mode of nature of the person that they're aimed at, the reader that will read those Puranas. There are 6 Puranas for people in the mode of goodness, people in the mode of passion, people in the mode of ignorance, making up 18 Mahapuranas. And then we have 2, what we call itihasas. These are traditional texts and traditional histories, but the itihasas are itihasa means that which was, and we have those 2, which are Mahabharata, which is sometimes considered to be a 5th Veda because it helps to also explain the Veda, and Ramayana. So these are the Puranas and Itihasas. And then the Dharma Shastras, cultural precepts, which deal with society, the Varnashram society, and the way societies were structured in different parts of Asia, South Asia, in ancient times. So that's from Manusmriti, that Pramana there. And we have another Purana, another one coming from Jagjivalkya Smriti. So we have there, we can count up 14 sources of knowledge or Vidyasthanas. So the 4 Vedas plus 6 Vedangas. The Vedangas were Shiksha, Vyakarana, Nirukta, Chanda, Jyotish, and Kalpa. If you don't know what those words mean, well, look at part 1 and you'll see an explanation of those. And then if we add, so that makes 10. And then if we add Mimamsa, that's 11, Nyaya, 12, right? The Puranas and Itihasas, 13, right? And 14, the Dharma Shastras. So that makes 14 what we call Vidyasthanas or places of knowledge. And then another quotation here from Yajnavalkya Smriti. Yajnavalkya was, of course, a disciple of Vedavyasas who was taught the Yajurveda, which we discussed last time. So Purana or Tarka, Nyaya Mimamsa, Dharma Shastranga Mishritaha, Veda Stanani, Vidyanam, Dharmasya cha Chaturdasa. So again, Chaturdasa means 14, the 14 Vidyasthanas or places of knowledge or Vedic knowledge. The Puranas, which again, when we say Puranas, we usually mean Purana Itihasa. Itihasa Purana go together, which we just discussed. The Puranas, traditional texts, Nyaya, which includes Tarka or disputation, or Nyaya means logic. Mimamsa, Vedic principles of analysis. The Dharma Shastras, cultural precepts, along with the 6 Vedangas supplements, and the four Vedas are the focus of knowledge and precepts, Vedic knowledge and precepts. So again, Yajnavalkya is saying here the same thing. He's giving the same list as Manu. In the Vishnu Purana, we have even up to 18 discussed. So Angani Vedas Chatvaro Mimam Sanyaya Vishtaraha Puranam Dharma Shastram Cha Vidya Hyetas Chaturdasaha. The exact same verse Manu has taken this verse from Vishnu Purana. So it's also there in Manu. So that, and then the next verse after that from Vishnu Purana describes some more. After the 14 Vidyasthanas, we have 4 more which are discussed. Ayurveda, Dhanurvedo, Gandharvas Chaiva Te Trayaha, Artha Shastram, Chatur Tantu, Vidya Ashtadashaiva Taha. The Ayurveda, science of life, right? The Dhanurveda, military science, and the Gandharva Veda, musical science. These 3, along with the 4th, Arthashastra, political science, make a total of 18 sources of knowledge. So this is giving us the full scope of the now we can say 18 Vidyasthanas, or places of where we can understand Vedic knowledge. How all of these shastras are meant to help us understand the Vedas, which are the eternal knowledge handed down to us by the rishis. Okay, so this explains that these are sometimes also called Upavedas, which I mentioned here, these supplements to the Veda. which are mentioned in Vishnu Purana. So we have Ayurveda, traditionally linked to the Rig Veda, Dhanurveda to the Yajurveda, Gandharva Veda to the Samaveda, and Arthashastra to the Atharva Veda. There's a little bit of a dispute. Some people say you'll find this sometimes, that there are different munis or rishis, different personalities who have slightly different ideas. So some people also add this change the designation of Ayurveda as to being from the Atharva Veda, that music that even Dhanurveda can be from the Atharva Veda. This is from the dictionary, Monier Williams Sanskrit Dictionary, which is a standard dictionary used by the BBT and Srila Prabhupada. According to others, we have that there is this Shilpa Shastra, which has to do with architecture, which is also considered sometimes to be also a fourth Upaveda. So again, in summary, if we're to remember, we discussed a little bit about how in Sanskrit, we can put things very easily into verses, which we can remember very easily. So if we want to sum up the Vedangas, we say Shiksha Kalpo Vyakaranam Niruktam Chandasam Chayaha Jyotisham Ayanam Chayava Vedangani Sareva Tu. So these are the 6 Vedangas. Shiksha, phonetics; Kalpa, ritual; Vyakarana, grammar; Nripta, etymology; Chandas, meter; and Jyotisha, astronomy, are the 6 limbs, Vedangas, of the Vedas. So we discussed those. And we also discussed about them, and we discussed how, if we consider the Vedas to be like a person, if we take an analogy and think of the Vedas as a person, these are the different limbs of the person, and they represent his mouth, his nose, his ears, his eyes, his hands, and his legs, and not exactly in that order. And we have slokas from different places that give us that analogy, so that we can also remember the meaning of these different Vedangas and how they help us to understand the Veda. So all of that, if you don't remember any of that, so please go to the first part of this series, and watch that lesson, watch that video, and that will be explained. So today, what we want to do is we want to go beyond that. I had asked in the chat, in the WhatsApp chat group, if anybody wanted to go into the particulars of any one of these Vedangas. But since nobody asked, we're going to start talking about Agamas. So previously we had understood that there are these 18 Vidyasthanas, and we had also understood that that there were 2 basic types of literature. Well, we can say 3 types of literature, Vedic literature. So we have the Shruti, which is the original Vedas, which are eternal. And then we have the Shmriti. Shruti means that which is heard, and comes from shru, to hear. And Shmar, or Shmariti means to remember. If anybody has any questions or comments, you can just type them into the chat, and we can have a question session at the end. And Smriti, or Shmriti, means that which is remembered, and which is authored, whereas the Vedas are unauthored. And the Shmriti literature helps us to understand the Shruti literature. So all of those other 18 minus 4, let's say 14 Vidyasthanas, or places of Vedic knowledge, they help us to understand the Vedas, like that. And all the Vedas themselves are called Nigama, the word Nigama. And then there's another type of literature called Agama. So Agama is also known as Tantra. So the word Tantra is pretty much misunderstood in the West, and people think that it has to do with some sort of sensual pleasures or something like that. Tantra, the word tantra doesn't mean that at all. So tan can mean different things, but let's say tantra really what it means is it means triate means to deliver, and tan means propagation. So that which is propagated and that which helps us to be delivered from this material world is called tantra. So tantra is nothing but the Vedic knowledge put into practical practice. So there are many kinds of tantras. So if we look on the internet, we'll see people talking about tantra, and even beyond Hinduism and Vaishnavism, there are people who talk about Buddhist tantras. There are tantras or agamas or Jain tantras. But to get an idea of why tantra is important, why tantra is important, we can look at the Bhagavatam, because Lord Krishna himself has described about how tantra is important as the practical means for worshiping him. So if we can pull up the Bhagavatam and we can see that Lord Krishna in the 11th canto, 27th chapter, verse 7. And so here we have Srimad Bhagavatam 11:27:7. Vaidikas Tantriko Mishra iti me trivido makaha Trayanam ipsitenaiva vidina mam samacharet. So the word acharet, some people may know the word archana or achara or archana, right? Archana is part of Navada Bhakti, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, Smaranam Parasevanam, Archanam Vandanam Dasyam, Sakyam Atmani Vedanam. So also in the Bhagavatam, it gives this the definition. There's another definition also given of these 9 forms of bhakti or of devotion to God. And we know from Bhagavad Gita that this bhakti is one of the methods which Lord Krishna talks about to approach him or to gain liberation or to serve him. So it is called the yoga or the system. Yoga comes from yukta, which means to join. So how we can join or commune with the Supreme Person. So in Bhagavad Gita, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and even surrender or Sharanagati are taught by the Supreme Person, Sri Krishna. And so here, part of that Bhakti Yoga is Archana or Archa. So it's a way of personally worshiping a form of God that we find in our home and in the temples, right? Which we'll discuss in a minute. So here, Lord Krishna is saying that there are actually 3 ways to serve him. So the translation is, one should carefully worship me, meaning the Supreme Person, Lord Krishna, right? By selecting one of 3 methods by which I receive sacrifice: Vedic, Tantric, or mixed. So in our previous lesson, we had discussed a little bit about the Vedas, and the Vedas being Shruti, there are what we discussed about the Vedanga the Kalpa Sutras. We discussed about different sutras, of course, being very short aphorisms to give us an idea about a vast subject matter. So the Kalpa Sutras, Kalpa being ritualism, right? The Vedic ritualism was mostly centered around fire sacrifice and performed by the different Brahmins and according to the regulations given in the Kalpa Sutras and in what are called the Brahmana section of the Vedas, because we have 4 sections: the Samhita, the hymns, then the Brahmana section, which tells us how to use the hymns, then the Aranyaka section and the Upanishad section are more philosophical for people who are retired to the forest or who have renounced life completely. and who are looking towards the next life. So here, Lord Krishna is saying that that the Vedic way of worshiping him is one way that you could worship him. So that would be the Vedic way of worshiping God would be through the hymns of the Vedas being used in the sacrifices, what we call Shrauta sacrifices. The Shrauta yagyas or sacrifices have to do with the Shruti, the Vedas, right? That which is heard, right? Whereas we might have smarta sacrifices, right? Smarta yagyas, right? Or yagas, that have to do with the Shmriti, right? Remember what the Shmriti was? The Shmriti was that literature which helps us to understand the Shruti, like that. So again, Itihasas, Puranas, and all these sort of things. So all of these things, and following of the Varnashrama system, according to the Dharma Shastras, and these different shastras, and performing these tasks would all be towards helping us understand the Vedic path, the Vedic path. But here, Lord Krishna is saying also that there's another path. There's another path. Now, that path here is given as tantric, the tantric path. So the tantric path, the other name for tantra is of course agama. Agama means to come close to the Lord, to come close. There are several meanings for these words tantra and agama, but we don't need to go into all of the meanings. But very simply, agama and tantra mean the same thing, and there are different agamas. There are different arguments, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And then also the third method, which Lord Krishna says here is the way to worship him, is not purely Vedic, not purely agamic or tantric, but mixed, but a mixed system where you might be doing some tantric or agamic worship of the Lord, and you might also mix in some Vedic mantras. So that will be a mixed system. So here are the three systems, and Lord Krishna says, I like to be worshipped, or I want to be worshipped by these three. I accept worship by these three methods. Okay, so having said that, let's have a look. Let's go to a chart here, and let's have a look at what we discussed last time, and how we're going to, the structure of what we're going to discuss now about Agama. So last time, last time we had the Veda, which was broken up into these four sections, excuse me. The Veda, which was broken up into these four sections. So we have Rig Veda, Shukla and Krishna Yajurveda. If you want to know the difference between the Shukla and Krishna Yajurveda, the white and the black Yajurveda, please look at the last time's lesson. We described that in detail. So we actually have, when we list the Vedas, we actually have 5 and not 4. The Sama Veda and the Atharva Veda. Originally, these Vedas were all one thing. Then that was called the Ekayana Shaka. The Ekayana Shaka. The word Shaka in Sanskrit means branch. So sometimes people will say, oh, what branch of the Vedas do you follow? Or what branch of the Vedas are you studying? And there are different branches and sub-branches. So for example, even within the Krishna Yajurveda, which is a branch of the Veda, there might be different shakas or different branches of the Krishna Yajurveda, Taittiriya Shaka, some other Maitrayani Shaka. There might be some different branches. Like in the Shukla Yajurveda, we have prevalent in North India, we have the Madhyandina Shaka, the Madhyandina branch, the Vajrasanes, and in the South India, we have the Kanva Shaka, following the sage Kanva. So we have different branches of the Vedas. So the Vedas are 4 here, and then each one of those Vedas has different sections to it, Samhita, Brahmana, Aranyaka, and Upanishads. The Upanishads being the philosophical section of that Veda, and the Aranyakas dealing with people who have gone to the forest. Aranya means forest. And so we also described about how this fits very nicely in with the Varnashram system, the different stages of life that students will study the Samhita, and then the grahastas, the householders, will perform the sacrifices by reading the instructions in the Brahmana section, and then in retired and renounced life, the Aranyakas and the Upanishads become more important. So this was our discussion about the Veda, and then we turn to the Vedanga. These are all of the 6 Vedangas listed and given their English translation. And this is how we understand the Veda. This is how we understand the Veda. In fact, we can't use the Veda, or we can't do anything with the Veda unless, or practically we can't do anything with any of these Vidyasthanas, because all these Shastras are all in Sanskrit. And I described how Prabhupada said that Sanskrit was the gateway to education. So without understanding Sanskrit, and the way to understand Sanskrit, first of all, through phonetics, we can add one more to this today. We have to understand the script, because not everyone reads the script and of course there are many scripts that Sanskrit can be written in. Sanskrit was originally a spoken language or a verbal language, and it wasn't written down before writing. So it's come to be written down in different scripts. Today we see it mainly in Devanagari script, but also we can see it in Roman script or Latin script. We can see it in many different scripts, even in all over India and all over South Asia also, Southeast Asia. So we have the phonetics, we have grammar, we have etymology, we have prosody, which tells us about the poetic form of the verses, because most Sanskrit is written in verse form. And we have what we call padya, or verse form of Sanskrit, and we also have gadya. We also have prose form of Sanskrit as well in some cases, but mostly in verse form. So then we talked about the after the 4 Vedas and the Vedangas, that makes 10. Then we have from 11 to 14, we have these different Vidyasthanas. We have the Itihasa Purana, which we talked about, Dharma Shastras, Nyaya, which has got to do with logic, which helps us with the Pramana, which is Anumana, logical inference, and Tarka, Vaisheshika, also an explanation of understanding disputation and logic, right? Sankhya, which literally means counting, which is like Vedic science. Yoga, the process of the Astanga Yoga of Patanjali, which deals with a system of one system of communing with the Supreme. Purvamamsa, which is all of the rules, sometimes called Karma Kanda, all of the rules of the Vedic sacrifices and how they're interpreted and how they're put into practice. And then Uttaramamsa, which basically takes those rules of interpretation and uses them with the Upanishads, the philosophical portion of the Vedas, to understand the deep import of philosophy that underlines that, which is called Vedanta. So this Purvamamsa is called Karmakanda, sometimes called, and then Uttaramamsa, or the second part, is called Jnanakanda, or sometimes called Vedanta. So Vedanta is also considered one of the 6 darshanas. Darshana means a way of looking at things, right, or a philosophy based on the Vedas. So we have Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Yoga, Sankhya, Apurva, and Uttaramamsa, which are the 6 darshanas. We didn't discuss exactly about the 6 darshanas last time, but anyway, they come out of all of these Vidyasthanas. And then lastly, going up to 18, we have the Ayurveda, Dhanaveda, Gandharva Veda, and Artha Shastra coming from the Rig, Yajur, Sama, and Atharva Vedas, right? Or some people also add to this the Shilpa Shastra. So I haven't put Shilpa Shastra in here because we couldn't find a pramana for that, but it was there mentioned in the dictionary definition of Vidyasthanas. So now today we come to a discussion of tantras, because all of these Vidyasthanas, all of these shastras were helping us to understand the Vedic way of doing things. The Vedic way of doing things, which has to do with the Varnashram system and has to do with all of these aspects of knowledge, right? So now we have the non-Vedic way. Now, just because we say that this is non-Vedic, Agama, as opposed to Nigama, Nigama meaning Vedic, Agama meaning non-Vedic, Tantra or Agama is considered non-Vedic. We can say Tantras, Agamas, right? The Tantras and Agamas are considered non-Vedic. However, they do have their basis in the Veda, because everything has their basis. All knowledge has its basis ultimately in the Veda. But even it is stated within the Agamas that the Agamas come from that Ekayana Shaka, the original Veda, before it was divided up by Vedavyasa. Vedavyasa, the word Veda, of course, he's called Vedavyasa because he dealt with the Vedas. He took the eternal Vedas and he divided them up into 4, Rig, Yajur, Sama, and Atharva, so that they were more easily assimilated by people. And Vyasa means simply he was a compiler. So you can think of Vyasa as the editor of the Vedas. He's not the author of the Vedas. Once again, the Vedas are Shruti. They're heard, they're realized by the seers of the Vedas, the rishis, and so they're unauthored. And that was one we discussed last time, one of the great principles of the Vedas, and why they're accepted as being self-proving, self-evident knowledge. So amongst the Agamas, the Tantras or the Agamas, we have different Agamas. Again, just like the Puranas, we have the Mahapuranas, which are divided, 18 Puranas, which are divided into 3 according to the different modes of nature. So we have also the Agamas. There are actually more than this, but as in regards to Hinduism or Vaishnavism, we have three tantras or 3 Agamas in Hinduism and Vaishnavism, and they are Shaiva Agamas, Shakta Agamas, and Vaishnava Agamas. So we'll leave aside the other Agamas that are outside of. There are actually Agamas that are outside of Hinduism and Vaishnavism. There's Bodha Agama, there's Buddhist Agamas, right, for Buddhists, right, and then there are Jain Agamas for Jains. Okay, so we'll leave aside those because we're not really worried about those right now. But we're also not too much worried about the Shaiva and Shakta Agamas even within Vaishnavism and or Hinduism, right? We have the Shaiva and Shakta Agamas, which might be useful for some people who are worshippers of Shiva and Shakti, meaning Shiva and Devi, like that. So those Agamas are for the school. There are many schools of Shaivism, which we won't go into, but basically we have 2 of them that now exist: a Kashmiri version and a South Indian version called Shaiva Siddhanta, and they both follow these Shaiva Agamas. There were previously more schools of Shaivism. And when we say Shaivism, we're not talking about Smarta, we're talking about Shaiva, because Smartas follow Smriti, right? Shaivas follow their own Tantras, their own Agamas, right? And they're specifically interested in the worship of Shiva. Shaktas are interested in the worship of Devi, or on all forms of Devi, like that. And they also have many Agamas like that. Exactly how many different types of Shaktas there are, I don't know. We're not really so much interested in that today. But what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the Vaishnava Agamas. Now, as Lord Krishna, as I showed in the Bhagavatam, right, which again is part of the Puranas, right, which is a Vidyasthana, all of these, which is to help us to understand, right? So Lord Krishna himself has stated that he should be worshipped, the Supreme Person should be worshipped according to these 3 different methods. So leaving aside the mixed method, and we have now understood a little bit about the Vedic method of worshiping God, right? And let's understand a little bit about the non-Vedic way, which the non-Vedic way means the Tantric way or the Agamic way. So there are two methods. There are 2 Agamas. There are 2 actual Vaishnava Agamas. And so the first one is called Vaikhanasa, right? And the second one is called Pancharatra. So in the Vaikhanasa Agama, was given to us. The Lord himself incarnated, and he came to this world as a personality called Vaikanasa Muni. So some rishi who taught the Vaikanasa Agama. So let's just have a look, and we have a here we go. We can show a picture of here Vaikanasa Muni. So here's a picture of Vaikanasa Muni and his 4 disciples. So from left to right, we have Atri, we have Brigu, we have Vaikanasa Muni in the center, and we have Marichi, and we have Kashyapa. So these people were the disciples of Vaikanasa Muni. Vaikanasa Muni, and you can see here, although he appeared and came as a sannyasin, so he has a danda here. So he has four arms, and he's showing the Shankha Chakra, the conch and the disc of Vishnu, showing that he is actually an incarnation of Vishnu. So this person is called Vaikanasa Muni, and he taught this agama, this method of worship of God, to these sages. Now, one of the things about the Vaikanasa agama, which is interesting to understand, is that only persons who are direct descendants coming in the gotras. What do I mean by gotra? I mean family lineage, right? The seminal family lineage coming from these particular rishis are accepted to be able to perform worship of the Lord in temples, because when we're talking about agamas, first of all, we're talking about temple worship, right? So there is temple worship, and then there is home worship. Home worship is a branch of, we can say, a subset of temple worship. So here we're talking about archanam, again, one of the Navada Bhaktis. So Shravanam, not Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam Pada, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyamatmani Vedanam. So we have all of these processes put together, but practically, how do we perform these processes? Through archanam, the system of worship of the Lord, which previously in the Vedic system was called kalpa, the Vedanga kalpa. Right, so we discussed that last time. So Vaikanasa is teaching his 4 disciples, and each of his disciples, you can see they're all holding palm leaf manuscripts. Each of them have heard from their master, and they have written different samhitas. So we have the Atri Samhita, Brigu Samhita, Marichi Samhita, Kashyapa Samhita. We have these different samhitas, right? Sometimes we can also say in the agamic sense or the tantric sense, when we talk about samhita, it's different from when we use the word samhita to mean the samhita of the Veda. So samhita simply means some is a prefix in Sanskrit that means to bring together. So we might an example of this is some kirtana, right? We all know that kirtana, Shravana Kirtana, right? Shravana means to hear, Kirtana means to praise or to chant, right? So chanting or praising God, right, is called Kirtana, right? If we take some and we add it to Kirtana, we get some Kirtana. It means to praise God together in a group. So here they have some hitas. They have books which are brought together. They've brought together all the knowledge that Vaikanasa Rishi is giving them. All the knowledge that Vaikanasa Rishi is giving them. They bring it together in these books, here shown as the palm leaf manuscripts, which still are used in South India. Let's say they last a very long time. Actually, the palm leaf manuscripts last longer than the physical books that we have today. So these sages, they compiled their understanding of the teachings of Vaikanasa Rishi into the Vaikanasa Agama Samhitas that we have. And those who follow those today in the temples that follow the Vaikanasa Agama, and we can say it's mostly in South India, mostly in the states of Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, and Karnataka a little bit, where they follow this Vaikanasa Agama in some of the temples. So in some temples, they're following this Vaikanasa Agama. This is one of the things. And all the priests in those temples are all direct descendants of one of these rishis in the gotras of Atri, Brigu, Marichi, Kashyapa, those sort of people. So it's not, it's a little bit of a closed system, because if you wanted to become a priest in a temple, if you wanted to study the Vaikhanasa Agama, of course you could study the Vaikhanasa Agama, but you're not really eligible or qualified to perform that type of worship unless and until you are born in the gotra of one of the rishis that was originally a student of Vaikhanasa Rishi. So it's a bit of a closed system like that. So in fact, these Vaikhanasins, they are considered to be one word for them is considered to be Garbha Vaishnavas. So what it means is Vaishnava means a person who worships Lord Vishnu or Krishna or Rama, any of Vishnu or any of his forms, and a person who is a Garbha Vaishnava, a Vaikhanasin, is a Vaishnava even from his very birth. And the way that they do this is that the Vaikhanasins have certain samskaras that they do, purificatory ceremonies that they do, and one of them is during the pregnancy of the mother. At the time during the pregnancy of the mother, when we would do a Pumasavana or a Simontanayana samskara, where during the pregnancy of the mother, they make a sweet rice. They make a milk rice, sweet milk pudding, right? And they infuse with the mantras of the Sudarshana chakra and the Panchajanya conch, which are the symbols of Lord Vishnu, right? They infuse those mantras into the sweet rice and offer that sweet rice, and then they give the mother that sweet rice, and it's understood that the baby is then purified by the conch and the discus of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, and therefore he becomes a Vaishnava, right? Even from his very birth. Okay, this is the way that the Vaikhanasins do it. So without being born in a family, it's a closed system. Nobody can take to that. So when Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavatam, when he says you can worship me by the tantric method or the agamic method, yes, he's talking about the agamas, and one of the agamas is the Vaikhanasa agama. But in order to do that, it's limited only to people who are born in those particular gotras or the particular family lineages. So now we come to a more important, most Vaishnavas, a more important agama, and that is the Pancharatra agama. So Pancharatra agama is the other way that we can worship the Lord. And so here we have it mentioned under here, Pancharatra agama. Pancharatra, the word Vaikhanasa, the word comes from the sage Vaikanas, who is an incarnation of Vishnu. He's an incarnation of the Lord, right? The Pancharatra, right? The word means, literally it means, Pancha means 5, and Ratra means night. So 5 nights. So there are many understandings of what the word Pancharatra actually means. This is given it's sort of like in sutra form, this idea of 5 nights. So some people say, well, there were 5 nights, and there were five sages who were taught the knowledge of Pancharatra over 5 nights, or the Lord spoke this knowledge over 5 nights, or over 5 days, because night can also mean a whole ratra, right? Aha means day, and ratra means night. So one night could mean the day and night. So 5 days, over 5 days. Ratra could also mean night in the sense of darkness, of ignorance, because we know from Guruvastakam, we know that there's a Guruvastakam that says, Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. We know that this says that we pray to our Guru, the spiritual master. Last time we explained about Guru, the word Gu means darkness and Ru means light. So the Guru takes us from darkness to light. So the Ratra is the night. So Pancharatra would be the 5 types of knowledge which take us from the Ratra, the night, to the day of spiritual understanding. So that's another meaning for the word Pancharatra. Pancharatra can mean several things like that. It also can can explain about in the system of Pancharatra, there's also an understanding of 5 forms of God. So this, some people say Pancha in the Pancharatra means about the 5 forms of God. Now, what are the 5 forms of God which are described in Pancharatra? They are Para, Vyuha, Vibhava, Antaryamin, and Archa, like that. So I haven't listed those there, but if anybody wants a list of those later, I'll explain each one. Para means the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his topmost abode. Wherever he is in his topmost abode, he's there, and he's completely transcendental to this material world. So like that. So that is the original personality of Godhead. So that is called Para. Para means supreme, means beyond everything, right? Para, Vyuha is an emanation from him, is an expansion from him. So the first expansions from him, and we can read about this by reading the Sattvic Puranas, the Puranas that have to do with the worship of Lord Vishnu and Krishna. And we can read those it's explained in there about the Vyuha emanations of the Supreme Person, Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. These are called the Chatur Vyuha. Chatur in Sanskrit means 4. Vyuha means emanation. So there are 4 emanations. So these are the second forms of God that we hear about. And in Pancharatra, there's a lot of emphasis on this Chatur Vyuha, these first emanations of God. God is said to have unlimited qualities, but his qualities are, they are basically, his auspicious qualities are basically listed as 6 in number, all fame, all knowledge, all renunciation, all fame, knowledge, beauty, renunciation. Missing it here. Okay, so anyway, the Jnana, Shakti, Bala, Virya, Tejas, and I'm also forgetting it in Sanskrit. Okay, so, but anyway, so these six qualities God has in full. This is definition of Bhagavan. Bhaga means, Van means the possessor of, Bhaga means auspicious qualities. So we have these 6 auspicious qualities that God has, and according to Shastras, and these are described in various places. So according to this, he expands, and each one of his expansions, the complete original personality of Godhead Vasudeva, expands to Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha, and shows specifically 2 of these important qualities. And then from Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha, these are expansions. We have even more expansions, which are called Upavyuhas. So when we had the Puranas, the Mahapuranas, we had Upapuranas. The word Upa means smaller, means subsidiary. So if we have a big Purana, then we have a small Purana called Upapurana. So if we have a primary expansion of God, we call it the Vyuha, the Chatur Vyuha. We could call it Mahavyuha, right? And the Upavyuhas, the smaller expansions, subsequent expansions from Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, Aniruddha. From Vasudeva, we have Keshava, Narayana, Madhava. From Sankarshana, we have Govinda, Vishnu, Madhusudana. From Pradyumna, we have Vamana, Sridhara, Rishikesha. From Aniruddha, we have Purushottama, Adhokshaja. We have Keshava, Narayana, Madhava, Govinda, Vishnu, Madhusudana, Trivikrama, Vamana, Sridhara, Rishikesha, Padmanabha, and Damodara. So we have Keshava to Damodar. These are, as we know, the names that we use for Tilak, the Dwarasa Pundras, or the 12 names or 12 places that we mark the body with Tilak. And also these names are used throughout Vaishnava ritualism. So these are called Upavyuhas. So we have, first of all, the primary vyuhas, Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and we have the Upavyuhas, Keshava, Narayana, Madhava, Govinda, Vishnu, Madhusudana, Trivikrama, Vamana, Sridhara, Rishikesha, Padmanabha, and Damodara. Okay, so this is all part of the Pancharatric system. And in the Pancharatric system, so we have we're talking about the 5 forms of God in the Pancharatra, the 5 forms starting with Para, the original personality of Godhead, then Vyuha, right? And then moving on from Vyuha this expression, we also have what is called Vibhava or Vaibhava, right? So in Vibhava incarnations, we can call them the Leela avatars. If we look in the Bhagavatam or in other scriptures, they'll be described as Leela avatars. Sometimes we know them as Das avatars, right? The 10 avatars of Vishnu. There's more than 10. There's unlimited, but they come to this world. Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says, Paritranaya sadhunam, vinashaya chuduskritam, dharma samstapanartaya, sambhavami yuge yuge. So yuga means an age. So yuge means in this age, in that age. So age after age, Lord Krishna comes, and he comes basically for different reasons. He gives those reasons, and these are the reasons which avatars appear. So these avatars are called Vibhava avatars, right? So they protect Paritranaya Sadhanam, they protect the Vaishnavas, the devotees. They Vinashaya Tuduskritam, they destroy the miscreants, the people who are the non-devotees, right? And Dharma Samstapanataya, they establish Dharma or religiosity like that. And they use the knowledge from the Vijayasthanas that we just talked about, to spread Dharma like that. So, for example, when Lord Rama came, the whole story of Rama is called the Ramayana. It helps to spread Dharma. We can see all over Southeast Asia, as far as China even, we can see the Ramayana has been spread all over Asia and in different forms. And but the basic principle of Dharma, good versus evil, is spoken of in all those forms all the way across Asia. So the Lord comes and he performs his pastimes. They're written down, and we have the Ramayana, or we have the Mahabharata in the case of Lord Krishna, and we have those stories that come to us from the avatars, from the Vibhava avatars of the Lord that appear from time to time, yuge in different ages, like that. So we have Karnika, Para, also called sometimes Karnika. Karnika means the inside of a flower. So if we consider the different expansions of God to be like a flower, the very stamens or the internal part of the flower is called Karnika, like that. So sometimes we say Para, sometimes we say Karnika. So anyway, Para, Vyuha, Vibhava, these are three, and we have two more ways that God appears, right? Different expansions of God that are mentioned in Pancharatra. So another form is called Antaryamin. Antaryamin, if we can read about Antaryamin, is also called the Paramatma. So the Atma means a soul. The word Atma can mean binds body or soul, but in this case it means soul, individual soul. We usually say Atma because in the Upanishads, Atma can also mean God. It can also mean the soul. Sometimes it means God, sometimes it means the soul. So to distinguish between God and the soul, we say Jivatman, right? Jivatman means the individual soul, and Paramatman means the supreme soul, means the super soul. So that Paramatman is also another name, is called Antaryamin. Antaryamin means the indwelling Lord, the one who is indwelling. We know about the indwelling Lord from the Veda, because in the Veda Purusha Sukta it says, Sahasra Shirsa Purushaha Sahasraksha Sahasrapat Sabhumim Vishvato Vritva Atyatistad Dasa Angulam, that the Lord appeared in different forms, and that he is the indwelling Lord in a form which is not greater than 10 angulas. Okay, so what do we mean by 10 angulas? Angula, dasangulam, right? So in the Veda, in Rig Veda, it says dasangulam. This is from Purusha Sukta, which is from the 10th mandala section of the Veda. It's the 90th sukta. Sukta is a wonderful utterance, a su ukta. Ukta means to speak. Su means something which is auspicious or good. So the Sukta, Purusha Sukta, which has to do with the Supreme Person, the first verse tells us that he appears in a form within the Antaryamin, right, which is no more than dasangulam. Dasangulam means 10 fingers. So an angula is a measurement that is the breadth of a finger. So if we take the breadth of a finger, so they didn't have millimeters or centimeters or inches in those days, they used angulas. So if we take 4 angulas, another 4 angulas, and 2 more angulas. Like that, we have a span of the hand, and this is the size, the maximum size that the Lord says in the Vedas, that he appears as the Antaryaman, or the Paramatma, the super soul within the heart, or within the heart region of every living being, like that. That's the maximum size. That's the maximum size. Now, a minimum size would be very, very small, because the Lord in this form also pervades everything. So all matter, everything is pervaded by the Lord. So the one meaning of the word Vishnu is pervader. Vishnu means pervader. So Vishnu is pervading everything. So there are actually 3 names, according to Pancharatra. There are 3 names of God which speak about this ability to pervade everything. This is one difference between God and the others, God and every other sentient being. So every other sentient being may have some sentience, right? So we have some sentience. We spoke about, when we spoke about pramanas, we spoke about pratyaksha. Pratyaksha pramana means that we can sense things with our senses. We have those 5 senses, which are called the Gyanendriyas. Gyanendriyas, if you don't know what that means, look at the lesson number 1. The Gyanendriyas are the knowledge acquiring senses. So we have skin, we have eyes, we have ears, we have nose, we have mouth for taste, we have nose for smell, we have eyes for seeing, we have ears for hearing, we have skin for touch. So we have all these senses, and we can gain sensory knowledge through these senses. So the Lord in these different forms, in the Antaryaman, he is also within each atom. So we can only understand the senses to a limited extent. Our sense perception, we can't feel what's in the next room. We can't smell what is on the other side of the planet. But the Supreme has no limits on his sense perception, right? He has no limits on his sense perception like that. So that is why he's called all-pervading. He's pervading everything. His consciousness is pervading everything, and he actually personally pervades everything, all matter and all spirit and all and even within our heart, like that. So this is the Antaryaman form. So we had para, vyuha, vibhava, and again Antaryaman, the indweller, like that. And we have 3 ways that he pervades everything. So Vishnu means that he pervades from inside. He's inside of everything. But there's another way of pervasion. There's another method of pervasion, and that is pervading from outside. Pervading from outside. You can pervade something from outside. So when God pervades from inside, he's called Vishnu. When he pervades from outside, he's called Vasudeva. And then the word Narayana means that he pervades from both inside and outside. So these 3 names are very, very important in Pancharatra, because these are called Vyapaka namas. The word nama means name, and Vyapaka means to pervade. So in Pancharatra, the idea is, the Antaryaman, the Lord can pervade from within and without. An example of pervasion from both within and without is, for example, how water pervades a fish. So if there's a fish in water, right, there's water all around the fish, and there's water inside the fish, flowing through the gills of the fish, right, even within the bodily tissue of the fish, just like our bodily tissue is mostly made up of water. So water is pervading inside the fish and outside the fish. So water pervades fully the fish, like that. So in the same way, God is pervading us. He's pervading this universe, and he's pervading from the outside. Because how is he pervading from outside? Because he's outside. He's transcendental to this material, to us, and to this material nature as para and vyuha, right? Vibhava, he visits this material creation from time to time, yuge, and he also is inside of this material creation as Antaryaman, the 4th. So we have Karnika or para, vyuha, vibhava, Antaryaman, and the last form, the 5th form, which Pancharatra talks about, the 5th form in the 5, is Archa. the Archa Vigraha. Now, what does Archa Vigraha means? The Archa is the form of God that we do Archana to. Archana means deity worship. So therefore, the deity worship is performed to the deity of God, the icon of the Lord, like that, in the temple or in the house. So this Pancharatra deals also with the worship of the Lord in temples. So a little bit about some of the temples, and some of the temples are the Vaikanasa and the Pancharatra Agamas, because we don't have time to go into the exact details of that worship of Pancharatra or Vaikanasa, right? But this is just an introduction to the systems, right? So a little bit about the major temples where these Agamas are practiced, right? An example of a temple where the Vaikanasa Agama is practiced is Tirumala. So Tirumala, what I'm talking about is Tirupati. The word Tirupati, of course, Tirupati is the town below, and Tirumala is on top of the hill. And this is in Andhra Pradesh, in South India. And Tirumala, the word Tirumala means sacred hill. Tiru in Tamil means sacred. It can be translated as Shri, right? And Mala means in Tamil also hill. So Tirumala means the sacred hill. Sacred hill. The deity in Tirumala is Lord Venkateshwara. Venkateshwara means the Lord of that Venkata hill. The hill is known as Venkata hill, like that. So that is the deity there, and that deity is worshipped according to the Vaikanasa Agama. So that's an example of the Vaikanasa Agamas. I've taken these examples from a very famous sloka, a very famous verse. Sri Rangamangalanidim Karunanivasam Sri Venkatadri Shikaralaya Kalamegam Sri Hasti Shaila Shikarojwala Parijatam Sri Sham Namami Shirasha Yadushaila Deepam. So this verse describes these four places, and these four places have to do with the Vaikanasa Agama and the Pancharatra Agama, the worship of Lord Vishnu, in different ways. So the first thing, if we talk about Vaikanasa Agama, Tirumala, sacred hill, Lord Venkateshwara, and he's the Lord of Venkata Hill. Now, in the sloka, the first one is actually Sri Rangam, but Sri Rangam is the worship in Sri Rangam is done according to the Pancharatra. So we have that one temple that I'm going to describe, Tirumala. There are many others. There's a temple in there's many temples in South India that follow the Vaikanasa Agama. But talking about the Pancharatra, in Pancharatra, talking about worship of those five forms of God, we also have this idea that there are different Samhitas. So when we were talking about Vaikanasa, we understood Vaikanasa Muni. He comes and he teaches his four disciples, and they write Samhitas. And according to those Samhitas, according to those books, the worship in the Vaikanasa temples is taking place. Similarly, we have also got in the Pancharatra, we have got some rishis who are giving us information about Pancharatra Agama. So those rishis have given us what we call the Ratnatraya. In Pancharatra Agama, there are more than 200 Samhitas. There are many, many Samhitas. There are probably more Samhitas than there are Vaikanasa Samhitas. And the Pancharatra is open to everybody. That's the beauty of Pancharatra, is that it's open to everybody. It's open to all classes, all different types of human beings, all genders. It's open to everyone. And so the Pancharatra method of worship is a Vaishnava Agama, which doesn't depend upon coming in a particular family lineage, right? Coming from Vaikanasa Rishi. So that's one of the advantages of it. So this Ratnatraya, the word Ratna means gem, and Traya means three. So Ratnatraya means the three gems. There are three really great or excellent gems or Samhitas of the Pancharatra, and those are called Paushkara, Jayakya, and Satvata. So the three temples that I'm going to explain that came in this verse, along with Tirupati, Tirumala, are Sri Rangam, Kanchipuram, and Tirunarayanapuram, otherwise known as Melkote. So in those places, they follow these three Samhitas of the Pancharatra, the Poshkara, the Jayakya, and the Sattvata, right? Now, these three Samhitas, they have other Samhitas which help us to understand those Samhitas, which are like commentaries on those Samhitas. And for the Poshkara, we have the Parameshwara. For the Jayakya, we have the Padma. And for the Sattvata, we have the Ishvara Samhita. So we have these three Samhitas, which are commentaries on the other Samhitas, which help us to understand. So together, the worship in Sri Rangam is performed according to the Poshkara and Parameshwara Samhitas. In Kanchipuram, performed according to the Jayakya and Padma Samhitas. In Tirunarayanapuram or Melkote, according to the Sattvata and Ishvara Samhitas. Okay, so if we go along here, we can also see that those places, Sri Rangam, Kanchipuram, and Tirunarayanapuram or Melkote, right? Sri Rangam is called Bhuvaloka Vaikuntham, Bhuloka Vaikuntham. So it's heaven on earth, Vaikuntha on earth, like that. Kanchipuram, the word Kanchi, Ka is the first consonant in the Sanskrit alphabet. So Ka, Ga, Ga, like that. So Ka is the first letter in the Sanskrit alphabet, which is a consonant. So the first letter in the Sanskrit alphabet is actually A, but it's a vowel, and that represents Lord Vishnu. But Ka represents Brahma. So the word Ka means Brahma. So for example, in the word Keshava, in the name Keshava, right? Ka Isha, Ka Isha Va, right? So Keshava, right? So the word Keshava is the name of Vishnu, right? Krishna. And Ka means Brahma, and Isha means Shiva. So the Lord of Brahma and Shiva is Vishnu, Keshava. This is one meaning of Keshava. So Ka means Brahma. So here in Kanchipuram, the Ka means Brahma, and the Anchi, right? Anchi refers to the worship, So it's not a place of the worship of Brahma, but it's the place of the worship of Brahma made worship of the Supreme Person, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in that place. So Brahma performed a sacrifice, and it said that the deity came out of the sacrifice, like that. So that deity is called Varadarajan. So in Melkote, so here's the names of the deities of the different places. So in Sri Rangam, we have Lord Ranganatha, right? Meaning the word Ranganatha means Lord of pastimes. Means Lord of pastimes, and Varadaraja means boon-giving king, and Sampat Kumar is the name of the deity in Melkote or Tirunarayanapuram, and it means wealthy son, like that. So Melkote, Tirunarayanapuram, Puram, of course, like Kanchipuram, they mean a place or a city, Puram, right? Tiru means again Sri, like Sri Rangam is also sometimes called Tiruvarangam. The word Tiru is simply Tamil for Sri. Excuse me. So here we have these four places. Sri Rangamangala Karunanivasam. That means Sri Rangam. Sri Rangamangala Karunanivasam. Sri Venkatadri, meaning Tirumala. Sri Venkatadri, right? Venkata Hill, Venkatadri. Sri Hasti Shaila. Hasti Shaila means Shaila means a hill. Hasti means elephant, so it's an elephant hill. There's actually a hill within the temple on which the deity room is sitting. And actually in a cave inside that hill, there's a Yoga Narasimha deity. So this is Kanchipuram, the Varadaraj temple. There's actually a lot of other temples in Kanchipuram of Vishnu and of Shiva and of Devi, but here we're talking about the main temple from which the town gets its name. And then Tirunarayanapuram or Srinarayanapuram, we can say in Sanskrit, right? Otherwise known in Karnataka as Melkote. The word Melkote means in Tamil means up, and kote means Kotai means a fort, right? So it means a hill fort. So when you go to that place, you'll see it's up on an escarpment, and you have to drive up, and then on top is the temple, like that. In fact, there are two temples up there. There's the Tirunarayana temple, and there's also a Narasimha temple on the peak of a mountaintop there. So these are the places where this Pancharatra Agama is practiced according to these different Samhitas, which are the main Samhitas of Pancharatra, the Ratnatraya, the great three gems of the Pancharatra, Paushkara, Jayakya, and Sattva, which have their commentaries Parameshwara, Padma, and Ishvara, and their worship is going on in the temples in Sri Rangam, Kanchipuram, and Tirunarayapuram. So that's a little bit about where the Pancharatra is spread. Now, some more about Pancharatra. The Pancharatra Samhitas themselves, each one of these Samhitas is divided up into sections. So just like we had the Vedas were divided into different sections for different groups of people. There were different subject matters in the different sections. So we had the Samhitas in the Vedas, which have the hymns, the Brahmanas, which give the directions for performing the sacrifice with the hymns, the Aranyakas for the retired people in the forest, which are more philosophical, and the Upanishads ultimately for understanding philosophy. The philosophy of the Upanishads is for us to understand 32 vidyas. The word vidya means, again, knowledge, 32 methods of attaining the supreme, which we didn't talk about last time, which if people are interested, we can also talk about the 32 vidyas, which are mentioned in the Upanishads. So in the Vedic scriptures, there are these different distinctions, and similarly in the Pancharatra Samhitas, there are some different sections. So those sections are four: the Gyanapada, the Yogapada, the Kriyapada, and the Charyapada. Right? So the Gyanapada has to do with explaining tattva, has to do with explaining principles of this material world, like that. So for example, in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, we have these three words which we discuss: Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. Sambandha means jnana, or knowledge of our situation here in this material world. Abhideya means the process by which we reach the spiritual world, the process by which we reach the goal, which is eternal service to the Lord or loving service to the Lord, right? And prayojana means the goal, that eternal loving service of the Lord. So we have where we are now, our goal, and how to get there. That is the way it's described in Gaudiya Vaishnavism: Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. In normal Sanskrit, we would say tattva, hita, and purusharta. Purusharta means the goals of human beings, the goal of God. So that means actually the ultimate goal in this sense, because there are other goals which are also mentioned in the Varnashram system, in the Vedic system. There are other goals that people might have. There's the goal of economic development, of sense gratification, and of simple religiosity. And then there is the goal of ultimate liberation, which means eternal loving service to God. So those are called dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. These are the four, what we call normal purusharthas. But here, this jnana is teaching us tattva. It's teaching us the truth, or the truths which will help us to perform some sadhana, some method of performance, some spiritual path that will take us to the goal, which is eternal loving service to God. So this is described in Gyanapada. So in Yogapada, we have in the Pancharatra, it describes a different type of yoga, not the eightfold yoga path of Patanjali, right, which is asana, pranayama, dhyana, all these different 8 sections, but there is a 6-fold method of yoga called Saranga Yoga, which has to do with prapati, or Sharanagati, the surrender unto the Supreme Lord, right? And there's 6 symptoms of surrender. So we anukulyasya sankalpa, pratikulyasya varjana. This is described in the Pancharatra. So we actually get this, Rupa Goswami and Vedanta Deshika all Vaishnavas of different sampradayas have quoted from the Pancharatra about Sharanagati, or property or the surrender to God. And we know that that is also considered, it's also there if we read the Bhagavatam in those 9 processes of bhakti, of devotion, right? Because we have Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, and Atmanivedanam. Atmanivedanam, or surrendering the soul, right, is also equivalent to this idea of property or Sharanagati, which is mentioned in the Pancharatra. So we have this in the Tantras, in the Agamas. In the Vedas, we also have one of the 32 Vidyas, one of the 32 methods of which are described in the Upanishads of reaching God, is also considered to be surrender. That is called Nyasa Vidya. Nyasa. So we might know the word Nyasa. Nyasa means to place. Nyasa, when we touch different parts of the body and we say different mantras and things like that, that is called Nyasa. Putting tilak on, that's a type of Nyasa. Touching and saying and saying a mantra like that is called Nyasa. Placing it. Nyasa means placing. Similarly, we have the word samnyasa, right? So we might know somebody who is a sannyasi. A sannyasi is a person who has placed his soul at the feet of God, nyasa, right? Samnyasa, coming together, bringing everything he has together and placing it at the feet of God, surrendering everything, samnyasa, right? Like that. In the sense, sannyasa is also, of course, one of the members of one of the ashramas in the Varnashrama system, which has 4 Varnas and 4 ashramas. It's a social system, right? But it's also, in another sense, all Vaishnavas, all people who are surrendered to God are all sannyasis in a sense, because the word nyasa means to surrender everything. So those persons who have surrendered everything to God, they're also sannyasis, right? Right? In the technical sense of the word sannyasa. But normally we use sannyasa for the social group of persons who are renounced, right, in the Varnashram system. Okay, so we have this yoga system where people are following the system of surrendering everything to God, right? And meaning Lord Vishnu in the case of the Pancharatra Agamas, right? And that's described in this Yoga Pada. So we have the Jnana Pada, where we understand the universe and we understand everything. And we have the Yoga Pada, and the Yoga Pada also deals with meditations, and the meditations are also there on the different chakras, different energy centers within the body, from the base of the spine up to the top of the head, from the Muladhara to the Sahasrara. And so this type of yoga or Kundalini yoga is also described here in the Yoga Pada of the Pancharatra. So then the next section is called the Kriya Pada. Kriya Pada has to do with Kriya. Now, what does Kriya mean? Kriya comes from the word Kriya, which means kar or karma, or it means to do. Kriya means to do. So Kriya means activities that we do. So Kriya Pada means activities. So specifically, though, it is the activities of making deities, building temples, installing deities for the worship. That's right. And then we have Charyapada. The Charyapada has to do with acharana or archana, right? It has to do with the worship of the deity in different ways. So we have Nitya and Naimitika methods of worship. Nitya means daily worship of the deity in the temple or in the house. And we have occasional worship according to different festivals that happen and different occurrences that may happen. How we worship the deity, if there's an eclipse, or how we worship the deity on the appearance day of Lord Rama or Lord Krishna or Lord Narasimha, right? And also how we perform daily worship. So this is covered in the Charyapada. So here we have these four sections of each Pancharatra Samhita. So naturally, nowadays, there are many people who are Pancharatric priests, and they mostly like to study the Charyapada, which is the daily and the occasional worship of the Lord, right? Nitya and the Naimitika, Utsavas, different festivals to perform, Pavitrotsava, Brahmotsava, all these different festivals. And then Ratotsava, Rathayatra, right? So there's also all these different types of temple festivals which are done. So that's mainly coming. So they're mainly studying today the Charyapada, and a few people who are more a few people who are more interested in the installation of the deity and the building of temples and all these sort of things. So some specialists, they will study the Kriya Pada, right, to show how to install the deity and how to do the first worship of the deity. So that, and then very few people are studying Yoga Pada and Jnana Pada today. But still, we have these different sections in the Pancharatra. So this is a little bit of an overview of Pancharatra and Vaikhanasa, being the two agamas which are devoted to the worship of Vishnu or Krishna, like that. They're Vaishnava agamas, and they're the ways. They're one of the ways which Lord Krishna says he likes to be worshipped, or he wants to be worshipped. And all of these are the original Samhitas. These are very ancient, right? And of course, they're coming from the Ekayana Shaka, the original form of the Veda before it was even divided up by Veda Vyasa. And they come down to us through different rishis, like that. We can just have a look at some of the pranam mantras of the different rishis, right, to get an idea of who has given us the Pancharatra. So here we have some prayers. Vande Lakshmipatim Devam Shankachakra Gadadaram Vidyamurtim Hayagrivam Sabdhartha Jnanalabdaye. Oh, I salute the Lord of Lakshmi, who holds the conch, discus, mace, and the embodiment of knowledge, Lord Hayagriva. Hayagriva, Haya means horse, and Griva means neck. So he's also sometimes called Hayashirsha. Shirsha means head. So he's the Lord incarnated with a horse head or a horse neck, like that. So he's normally considered to be the form of Lord Vishnu that the Vaishnavas worship to gain knowledge. And regular smarter Hindus, like that, people might be worshipping the goddess Saraswati to get knowledge. But Hayagriva, the story about Hayagriva is that Lord Brahma, when he creates, was given the Vedas. He was given the Veda by the Supreme as like a operation manual for the universe, and he had this knowledge of the Veda, right? This is the story given in the Puranas. The Puranas give us stories from which we can understand certain morals and certain principles, like that. So this principle of knowledge is that sometimes we have knowledge and sometimes we forget the knowledge, like that. So Lord Brahma, the symbolization of Brahma losing the knowledge of the Vedas is that there are these two demons called Madhu and Kaitapa, right, who stole the knowledge from him. And of course, these also have analogous meanings, but they also have the story. So the demons, Madhu and Kaitapa, they stole away the Vedas from Brahma. Then Brahma asked Vishnu, please restore the Vedas to me. So restoring the Vedas to Brahma, the incarnation that did that is called Lord Hayagriva. He came with a horse head and he killed those demons and restored the Vedas to Brahma, like that. Similarly, every day the Brahmins pray, in Sandhya Vandanam, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, Surya Narayana, please enlighten us with the Gayatri Mantra. We have the Gayatri Mantra from the Vedas. We say, please enlighten us. Please help us to remember you, help us to serve you, and to enlighten you, to be enlightened by you, like that. So moving on, I'll just leave out the Sanskrit here. I honor the teacher of Pancharatra Agama, who is the abode of nectar, dark like rain clouds, and the bestower of nectar, the Lord of Vaikuntha. This brings up another point, that who has taught the Pancharatra Agama. We talked about the Vaikhanasa Agama, that we have the sage Vaikanas, who taught to his 4 disciples the Vaikhanasa Agama. But in Pancharatra, who taught Pancharatra? So there are different Pancharatra Agama Samhitas, right? Some of them were taught directly by the Lord and were the utterance of the Supreme Person. He incarnated and gave the Pancharatric knowledge. Others were spoken by other persons, right? Other eternal associates of the Lord, like Shesha, like different people who have come and spoken the Pancharatra. Vishvaksena, there's a Vishvaksena Samhita, there's a Padma Samhita, which is coming from Shesha, who is also known as Padma. And then there are sages, there are rishis who have written different pancharatras, samhitas, like that. So first of all, here, when we praise the teachers of the Pancharatra, the first teacher that we think of is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because Pancharatra is taught by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as well as being taught by his eternal associates and great rishis. So first of all, we think of him. So he's dark like a rain cloud, dark like a rain cloud. This is talking about the Lord of Vaikuntha. So this is the usual pranam that we say at the beginning of any class in Pancharatra. Namassa Kala Kalyana Daini Sheshashayini Nirmalananda Kalyana Nidaye Vishnave Namaha. Salutations to Vishnu, the bestower of all auspiciousness, who reclines on the serpent Shesha, the pure blissful abode of goodness. I offer my homage to Vishnu. So again, salutations to the bestower of all auspiciousness, the wielder of the discus, Lord Vishnu, who rescues those immersed in the ocean of worldly existence. Now we get to the different rishis. Now the Lord has 5 weapons. He has 5 weapons. He has the conch, the disc, the conch, the disc, the bow, the sword, and the mace. Right? So he has all these 5 weapons, and these weapons incarnated as different rishis, right, to teach the Pancharatra. So here is explained about that. The 5 Brahma rishis, headed by Sudarshana, the chakra. Sudarshana incarnated as a sage called Shandilya. So sometimes we also hear about Shandilya Bhakti Sutras and things like that. So Shandilya is considered to be an incarnation of Sudarshana chakra of the Lord. So the 5 Brahma rishis headed by Sudarshana and others manifest on the surface of the earth, starting from the Pondravardhana region. Not exactly sure where that is. Right, the 5 sages of Pancharatra, and this can be another meaning of Pancharatra. This is the 5 sages, right? The 5 sages, Pancha rishis, associated with the 5 divine weapons, or Pancha Ayudas. Ayuda means a weapon. Pancha means 5. So Pancha Ayudas of Vishnu are Shandilya, associated with the Sudarshana chakra discus of Vishnu. Opagayana, associated with the Shankha or the conch shell. Monjayana, associated with the mace or the gada of Vishnu. Kaushika, associated with Shanga bow of Vishnu. And Bharadwaja, associated with the Nandika sword of Vishnu. Right? The Supreme Lord, who is the master of the universe, imparted teachings separately day and night to each of these 5 excellent sages. Then we have individual pranam mantras, individual hymns of prayer, verses of prayer for each praise of each one of these. So I salute Sandilya Acharya, who's well versed in the knowledge of Bhagavad Shastra, meaning the Bhagavad Shastra is another name for Pancharatra. Pancharatra is called a Bhagavad Shastra. So initially in the history of Pancharatra, there is, scholars will say that there was a separate Bhagavata cult and a separate Pancharatra cult, and they merged together like that. But we can say from the very beginning that the Pancharatra Shastras was called Bhagavad Shastra, has to do with the Supreme, has to do with Bhagavan. Right. He emerged from the sacred place called Pondra, and he took refuge at the feet of the Lord. I worship Opagayana, who is well versed in Bhagavad Shastra, took refuge at the feet of Vasudeva, and he came from this place Totadri, which is called Nanguneri today, which is there almost at the tip of South India. Then we have, I take refuge of the teacher Monjayana, who is a disciple of the Lord, coming from Anantapuram. Not sure, but that may have to do with Tiruvananthapuram, which is the previously called Trivandrum under the British system in Kerala. And then we have salutations to Guru Kaushika, who is the object of Lord Vasudeva's grace, and he is in the lineage of the sage Mriga. Then Bharadwaja, who took refuge again. All of them took refuge and surrendered unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead's lotus feet. The embodiment of noble qualities, who was born from the mountain of Shalagrama. Shalagrama, there are 2 places, Shalagrama. One is high in the Himalayas, now in present-day Nepal on the Gandaki River, and another one is in a different place in South India. Sometimes there are these sacred places in North India and South India which are considered equivalent, like Mathura and Madurai, or Brindaban, and or for instance Badrikashram and Melkote. These are considered equivalents in South India. So I offer my salutations to these 5 teachers who are well versed in the principles of Pancharatra doctrine, skilled in 5 sacraments, and devoted to 5 daily rituals. So another meaning of Pancharatra, the Pancha in Pancharatra, has to do with 5 daily rituals. We get up in the morning and we start. First of all, we have to get ourselves ready for Abhigamana. We start with Abhigamana. We get up in the morning. Abhigamana means that we get up and we prepare ourselves for the worship of the Lord by taking bath and dressing properly and doing all this sort of things. And then what we do is we then collect items, upadana. We collect items for worshiping the Lord. And then after we collect those items for worshiping the Lord, then we perform the worship of the Lord. So we have Abhigamana, Upadana, then we have Ija, which is the puja proper that we do to the Lord. And then after Ija, we have Swadhyaya. Swadhyaya means study of the scriptures, which tell us about the Lord, right? And then yoga. Yoga means meditation of the Lord until falling asleep at night, like that. So this Pancharatra teaches us this 5-fold method of daily practice of worship of the Lord and how we should do it, like that. So all of the Vaishnava Sampradayas have taken from the original Pancharatra. We have the Madhva Sampradaya, the Sri Sampradaya, we have the Gaudiya Sampradaya, we have the Nimbarka Sampradaya, and we have the Vallabha Sampradaya. All of them have taken elements of this Pancharatra, and the founders of these different Sampradayas have or Sampradaya means culture, Sampradaya means tradition, and it also includes a parampara, or a lineage of teachers, one after the other, who teach these principles. And the principles originally coming of worship of Lord Vishnu, originally coming from the Agamas like Vaikhanasa and Pancharatra. Only in the Sri Sampradaya we have still people following some of the Vaikhanasa rituals in the Vaikhanasa temples. In all of the other Sampradayas, Vaishnava Sampradayas, they have got books written by the acharyas or the teachers of that tradition, which have introduced Pancharatric or Agamic principles into their Sampradaya. So for example, in the Gaudiya Sampradaya, we have the Hari Bhakti Vilas, written by Gopal Bhatta Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, right, to give us principles of Pancharatra. We have in the Nimbarka Sampradaya, we have Keshava Kashmiri, who was a great acharya, right, who wrote the Krama Dipika, right, which is also quoted in Hari Bhakti Vilas quite a lot, right, to give us principles of Pancharatra, of Tantra, of Agama. In the Sri Sampradaya, we have the Nitya Grantha of Ramanuja, and we have some other books which are also giving us principles of Pancharatra, especially for home worship. And we have in the Madhva Sampradaya, we have, for example, this Tantra Sar Sangraha by Madhva, and Sadachar Smriti, also by Madhva, to give us principles from Pancharatra. So we have, in all these Vaishnava Sampradayas, we have the founders simplifying the Pancharatra, because, like I said, there's 200 different Samhitas. They get simplified down, and the essence of them taken by different acharyas in the different Vaishnava Sampradayas. But basically, the worship in all these Vaishnava Sampradayas is coming from the Pancharatra. So getting back to a little bit about how the Lord spoke the Pancharatra, like that. We have that again, that idea of Pancharatra meaning 5 days or 5 nights in which the principles were explained. These 5 daily rituals were explained, right? So we have here that Ananta is the guardian of the first night. So we have here 5 nights being described. Garuda, the divine eagle and vehicle of Lord Vishnu, is the guardian of the second night. Vishvaksena, who is the commander-in-chief of Vishnu's army, like his secretary, right, is the guardian of the third night. Brahma, who meditates on the Vedas, as the guardian of the fourth night. And Rudra, Lord Shiva, as the guardian of the 5th night. Thus, the Pancharatra is praised as the great Upanishad. What does Upanishad means? Upanishad. Shat siddhati means to sit. Upa means upani means sit close. Sit close. So when you sit close, although we're on Zoom and we're thousands of miles apart, right? Because of the power of the internet, we're able to be close to another person. That teacher is able to teach us principles because we're close. So Upanishad basically means pay attention, sit close, like that. So here it's been translated as secret knowledge, Upanishad, secret knowledge, corresponding to the four Vedas. So the Pancharatra again here is being praised as coming from the Veda, as being Vedic in character, but if not in form. So by the conclusion of Sankhya and Yoga, this Pancharatra doctrine is understood. So as the essence of Vedanta is gathered, so the divine Hari, Lord Vishnu, is comprehended. This is the 5-night Anushabdi of Sankhya Yoga by fate, just as the Venerable Hari captured the essence of Vedanta. The compassionate and learned one, having compiled the Agamas, that's the supreme, right? Bharata here can mean Natya Shastra, or it can also means the science of dance, but it can also mean the Mahabharata, right? Which is also considered the fifth Veda to explain the Vedas. Shilpa Shastra, the science of architecture, Ayurveda, and Jyotisha, which we also discussed in there as part of the Vedangas and Chaturvidyasthanas. Right, so Panchashastrani Samyogat, right? The combination of these five scriptures, the Pancharatra doctrine is proclaimed. So combining those things together, we get the knowledge from the Pancharatra. The four Vedas are said to have four aims, Purusharthas, right? So we went through those before, Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, right? And the Bharata, referring to Mahabharata, is said to have 100,000 verses, right? So in fact, the Mahabharata does have 100,000 verses, or 100,000 verses. The five scriptures are combined and preached on the 5 nights, but the 4 Vedas are 100,000, and 100,000 are called Mahabharata, right? So 200,000 verses on architecture, 400,000 verses on astrology, 500,000 verses as a measure. The Pancharatra doctrine is proclaimed 2 lakhs or 200,000 for crafts, 400,000 for astrology. 5 nights are spent in the measure of 5 lakhs. So the 4 Vedas are said to have 100,000 verses. The Mahabharata is said to have 100,000 verses. Shaiva texts are said to have 200,000 verses. Jyotish Shastra, about astronomy and astrology, 400,000 verses. So here it's simply describing how there are so many verses like that. And we discussed this in the last time when we talked about the sutra era, or the sutra system of condensing all the knowledge into smaller amounts, because it became so voluminous. But so here we have the Pancharatra doctrine being talked about, and we're also talking about I always take refuge of the Lord, right? The foremost teacher of Pancharatra, who enlightens the chief of serpents, Sheshan, who is seated on a lotus, Padma, and Wimgarbha. Anyway, so basically we have Bhardraja and others, likewise Shandilya, Monjayana. I bow to the great yogis and the lineage of gurus and the Koshikas, followers of Koshika. So these are just some hymns of praise which are given in some of the Pancharatra Samhitas, right? About the origin of the system, which is very ancient, right? Co-ancient with the Vedas, and it's giving us the temple worship and the home worship. This, in a slightly abridged form, the home worship is being taken from that for all Vaishnavas. So the system of worship for all Vaishnavas is according to these Agamas, specifically the Pancharatra Agamas. So now that we've described a little bit about Tantras and Agamas, and we recapped a little bit about the 18 or 14 or Vidyasthanas, or places of knowledge in the according to the Vedic knowledge. Now, if we have any questions, we can do with some questions. So somebody said it would be nice to have a discussion on Jyoti. I think you mean Jyotisha, as there tends to be different opinions in our society. Thank you. Whoever wrote that they wanted to know a little bit more about Jyotisha, right? That's a very, very general question. I cannot answer that question. I did say last time that I was able to answer specific questions, but general questions like of that nature. Can you say some more about Jyotisha? As you see, there's hundreds of thousands of verses on Jyotisha. It cannot be discussed just like that. So if there's a specific question on Jyotisha, somebody can ask. So somebody in the chat is saying, Hare Krishna, Prabhu, in which part of the Vedas can we study Vastu? Okay, so that was described before Shilpa Shastra. In the Shilpa Shastra, it's going to describe about Vastu. Vastu also is a huge subject. And what do we mean by Vastu? Do we mean the Vastu? We can also find out about Vastu in the Puranas. In I believe it's Matsya Purana. If you look in the Matsya Purana, if you want to contact me later through the WhatsApp group or through my email, I can direct you to places, the original places in the Matsya Purana, in the Puranas that speak about Vastu.
Krishna Prabhu, it was Nalini Devidasi who asked a question about Jyotis. And the specific question would be, sometimes we're told it's not necessary. And sometimes we're told, well, it is in Shastra and it does exist. So we know in other faiths, they do have this Jyotish as well. So it's kind of a bit confusing. Is it necessary? Is it okay to refer to astrology or not?
Okay. All right. So the Jyotisha, the original use of Jyotisha was it was a Vedanga. And so all the Vedangas were used to help us to perform the worship of God. The worship of God according to the Vedic system. Remember, Krishna said there's 3 ways to worship me, the Vedic system. So the Vedic system of worshiping God involves the use of Jyotisha to find out the muhurta, the most auspicious time to perform the sacrifice, and the least auspicious time, the time to avoid performing the sacrifice, the Shraddha sacrifice. So that was the original the original use of Jyotisha. So if you are interested to perform Shraddha sacrifices, then I recommend, or if you're interested at all in that particular branch of Jyotisha, let's look at Jyotisha. I think we've got something written on the different aspects of Jyotisha. So let's just pull that up. Okay, so here's our breakdown of the different Vedangas. So let's get to Jyotisha and look at the breakdown of Jyotisha. So in Jyotisha, we have also Jyotisha can be divided into these things. So when you say Jyotisha, exactly what part of Jyotisha do you mean? You don't mean cosmology, you don't mean mathematics, right? I was just describing muhurta timings, right? Timings of what is it important? Is Jyotisha important? Okay, so for example, in the daily life of devotees, do we not have a Vaishnav calendar? We have a Vaishnav calendar, correct? Years ago, many years ago, I used to go to, when I was living in India, I would go to the Mayapur festival, and one of my duties was to go down the road to the Gaudiya Math, to the Yoga Pith, and to buy the Gaudiya Panchangam. Panchangam is Pancha. Actually, there's 5 aspects to a calendar in India. These are called Panchangas, right? We don't need to go into it in detail here, but we could if people are interested, like that, what the 5 aspects of a calendar are. But you need 5, and by the knowledge of these 5 aspects of the calendar, of the Vedic calendar, we actually can destroy sin and we can help ourselves in so many ways. So for example, many people wear a watch. Even nowadays, people have cell phones. On the cell phone, it tells you the time. On the watch, it tells you the time. Is it important to know the time? Yes, it's important to know the time for our daily life. It's important to know what day of the week is, because maybe Saturday and Sunday on the weekend, we don't have to go to work, or we have to go to work. It depends upon our schedule. So So we have to know the day of the week. We have to know the time. We have to know the day of the time of year. Farmers especially have to know it to sow crops, right? So we have to know about time. That is all described in Jyotisha. So is Jyotisha correct? Is Jyotisha important? Yes, Jyotisha is important. Without Jyotisha, we don't know what time of day it is. We don't know we don't know when Ekadasi comes. We don't know when to celebrate Janmashtami. We don't know when an eclipse is going to happen. We don't know any of these things without Jyotisha. So is Jyotisha important in the daily lives of people in general and also Vaishnavas in particular? Yes, definitely. Like that. Now, if somebody says about horoscopy, is it important that I get my chart done and I try to find out what Jyotisha is saying about my future, my past, present, and future? Well, Vaishnavas, we're surrendered to the Supreme Lord. We're surrendered to the Supreme Lord. So we may or may not want to look at our horoscope. Maybe we're so surrendered that we just say, whatever the Lord wills, that's fine, like that. Or maybe we want to look and we want to say, well, Jyotisha has something to say about, in horoscopy, has something to say about, my tendencies or what will happen in my life or who I should marry or who I shouldn't marry, this sort of thing. So it's possible that in Jyotisha, there's these things also. So how can you say that we accept Jyotisha when it tells us when Ekadasi is, but we don't accept Jyotisha when it tells us, this particular period of our life or that and the other? The real problem with horoscopy is finding a proper person who knows it properly. There's no problem with Jyotisha, the science of Jyotisha. But did you find a good scientist? Did you find a good astrologer? Did you find somebody who actually knows the science? That's the problem. And without knowing a little bit about the science, you're going to be cheated. Just like when if you go into a gold shop and the person pulls out something and says, buy this, right? And he shows you, he tests the gold, he scrapes the gold on a stone and puts some nitric acid on that and shows you that this is really gold. There's a test for what pure gold is, like that. Then you can be sure that it's real gold, right? Because you know a little bit about how to test gold when you walk in there. But if you know nothing about gold, if you don't know, Prabhupada has given this example, if you don't know anything about gold, if you don't know that gold is even yellow in color, if you go somewhere and somebody says, here's a piece of white gold is not gold. Here's a piece of gold, but why is it green? It's not. It's a special type of gold. And you believe that person, you have no knowledge about the science of gold, then you'll be cheated. So if you have no knowledge of Jyotisha, then even if you inquire from somebody who says that he knows about Jyotisha, you may be cheated. Or maybe you'll stumble across somebody who actually knows what he's talking about. So the point is that all these sciences are there in the scriptures. If somebody follows the scriptures, it's just like Bhagavad Gita, what Prabhupada says about Bhagavad Gita. Can we read any Bhagavad Gita and get the same knowledge? Prabhupada says, no, you can't read every Bhagavad Gita. If you read the introduction to Bhagavad Gita, he says, read Bhagavad Gita that's written by a devotee of Krishna, somebody who's a Vaishnava, like that. So there are different Vaishnava commentaries on Bhagavad Gita. Ramanuja's written a commentary, Madhva's written a commentary. These people are Vaishnavas. Prabhupada's written a commentary. Vaishnava commentaries on Bhagavad Gita. There are many commentaries on Bhagavad Gita which are not by Vaishnavas. And if you read those commentaries, you'll see that they don't give the Vaishnava point of view. So if we want to use the science, we have to learn at least we have to learn a little bit about the science. I don't need to learn to fly an airplane, to buy a ticket and to get on an airplane and fly to another country. I don't need to do that. But I need to know some basic facts. I need to believe in some basic facts. I don't get into any airplane, right? There may be somebody down the street who's got an airplane and says, here, take a flight with me, like that. Are you listed with the FAA? Are you qualified pilot? Are you all this sort of things? I have faith if I take British Airways or Lufthansa or something, or Qantas, I have faith in that because those people are authorized and they've learned the science of flying. Maybe I don't have faith in somebody down the road who has his own little airplane and thinks he can fly. Okay, so the point is all these things have to do with authorities. If the authority is good and the authority follows the scriptures, then that can be trusted. If the authority isn't any good and the authority doesn't follow the scriptures, then we can't follow that like that. There's nothing wrong with Jyotisha. The problem is the people who practice Jyotisha, are they good or not? We need to know some Jyotisha, some proper Jyotisha, in order to judge that. We can't just look up in the phone book and just say, oh, you know.
I was just going to respond to that because I went to the Body, Mind, and Soul. There's a big thing at in London, and the
Sure.
devotees you go there, and the devotees do a book table, and we do the books and we do kirtan and so on. And there are lots of people from Christian background who do I don't know, astrology or readings or something like that. And several devotees went to ask them some questions. And they found out that they were actually saying things which are quite accurate. It astounded me because I was thinking, well, you know, how come they know all this? And
okay, so just let me just comment a little bit about that, right? So there's Western astrology and there's Eastern astrology. There's actually different forms of astrology, right? And to be clear here, Jyotisha is a Vedanga. It's not astrology. Jyotisha is not astrology. It's a Vedanga, and it has as part of it is astrology. Okay. Now,
yeah.
the way that Jyotisha works is that we understand in Jyotisha about the equinox. We about the ecliptic, right? The ecliptic means that we have the Earth, and we look out around us, and we see as the Earth turns, we see different stars appearing, coming up over the horizon, and then setting also, right? So this is because of the Earth moving. So there is a thing called the precession of equinoxes, which means that there is a way of calculating certain things, and there are two zodiacs. There's the tropical zodiac and there's the sidereal zodiac. So Vedic astrology uses the sidereal zodiac. There's a difference of if you don't understand these things, then you're not going to know what you're in for. You're just shooting in the dark, asking people about astrology. You have to understand about astrology before asking somebody who says that they're an astrologist something, right? You have to know something about astrology. If you don't know, you can't judge the answer, whether it's correct or not. So in the Western system, they use a tropical zodiac. In the Eastern system, they use a sidereal zodiac. There's a difference. So somebody may say, oh, your rising sign is Aries. The other guy says Taurus or whatever it is, right? So there are certain principles which the Western astrologers have designed to deal with their system. And there are other principles which are designed in the Vedic system, in the sidereal zodiac system, right? So somehow or other, people may come to the same conclusion, right? But by two different methods. So I'm not saying that a Western astrologer can't come to the right conclusion. A Western astrologer may come to the right conclusion, but by a different process. But we don't know if he'll always come to the right conclusion. Whereas we have faith in the Vedanga Jyotisha because it's based on the Veda, right? It's explaining the Veda. We have faith in that system, right? Whereas we don't know about the other system. Maybe if we investigate the other system. Now, the other system is also based on mathematics. Mathematics is the same. Mathematics is the same for everybody in the world, whether you're a devotee or a non-devotee. You know, the observations that people do, right? The astronomical observations are the same. They're the same. So, for example, sometimes whenever somebody says to me, "Oh, there's an eclipse" or something like that, what do? I look at NASA. I look at the NASA website. The NASA website has a page on eclipses. Why? Because why do I look at NASA? Why don't I just go and ask a devotee astrologer or something like that? I can look at NASA because I know, or I have faith that they are giving me very accurate information about the observation. That observation, that's pratyaksha. But pratyaksha is fine. It's fine. Everybody's going to say the same thing like that. So how we interpret that, that's another thing. That's another thing like that. So the Eastern astrology may say something, it's interpreting according to its rules, and the Western astrology may say something, and they may come to the same conclusion, or they may not. We don't know. So if you investigate that system, if you know, as I said, in order to trust a system, you have to know something about the system. So if you don't know anything about the system, you don't know whether the Western astrologer just made a good guess or not. Similarly, even with a person who says he's a Vedic astrologer, if you don't know anything about astrology, how do you know to test that astrologer? How do you know the Western astrologer might have studied the principles, and his principles might be good. And according to his principles, he comes to a thing, and you say, "Wow, he's got something right." And the Eastern astrologer may not actually know his own principles of Vedanga, of Jyotisha. He may not understand correctly. He may come to the wrong decision, like that. I knew somebody, and they had an Eastern person, an Eastern astrologer, a Vedic astrologer, look at their chart, and they said, "Oh, this is something, this is this and this and this," like that. That person came to me. I'm not an astrologer, like that. But I said to them, "Oh, they said this about you. When were you born?" And the person said, "I was born. I talked to my mother, and I was born, in the afternoon," like that. I said, "Look at the guy who did your chart. He says you were born in the middle of the night." If you talk to a Vedic astrologer and he says, "Oh, you have Rahu and Ketu in the same house," immediately you know that he's bogus, because Rahu and Ketu can never be in the same house. But you have to know a little bit about astrology to know that, right? So that's why Shabda means authoritative statement. In order to accept the statement of somebody who is putting himself up as an authority, we have to understand how he is an authority. We have to have faith in that person as an authority. How do we get faith in that person as an authority? We have to know something about the thing that he is an authority in, and we have to judge him. We don't have to know the full science of astrology, but we do need to know some basic facts, to be able to judge that person. So without knowing that a person is an authority, just accepting them as authority is not right. Whether they're Vedic, whether they say they're Vedic or non-Vedic, right? That's the first thing. So that's the first thing. So that's what we learned in Pramanas. That's in the last class we were talking about that, right? Shabda means authoritative statement. The Vedas are Swata Pramana. They are self-proven. We don't have to test them like that. If you read that introduction to Isa Upanishad that I suggested everybody read by Srila Prabhupada, he says, in the Vedas it says that cow dung is pure. Science also tests the cow dung and finds that it's pure. It has some ammonia in it. It's considered pure, like that. So you can test the Vedic knowledge. The Vedic knowledge is pure. It's true, right? It's Swata Pramana. It's self-proven. But everything else you have to test. You have to test knowledge. So if you say there's some truth in the Bible, yes, There's some truth in the Bible. Yeah, in the Quran, there may be truth in any book, of knowledge that we find by any person. There might be some truth, right? But unless we know the subject, how can we distinguish between truth and fiction, truth and untruth? So we have to know a little bit about the subject in order to judge the authority. Then we can accept the authority, right? So, for example, if somebody says to me, I go to an office and I go into that office and the person has on his wall a degree in medicine from Harvard Medical School. He's done his degree like that. So I trust him. At the same time, even if he gives me a diagnosis, I might want a second opinion. I might go to another person who has a degree from another medical school or a different doctor to get a second opinion. So even with all these shastras, also, if we might read something in some Purana, we might take something in, for example, we all know the conch and the discus of Lord Vishnu are auspicious symbols. Branding the body with the symbols of Vishnu is considered to be highly auspicious for certain Vaishnava groups, right? If we read Devi Bhagavat Purana, it's a Mahapurana. Devi Bhagavat Purana, it says those persons who do that go to hell. But that Purana is written for people in the mode of ignorance or in the mode of passion. It's not a Sattvic Purana. So there may be something in some of these scriptures that disagrees with Sattvic Puranas or disagrees with the Vedas. There may be something there that slightly is different. So we have to be able to weigh authoritative statements and see which is more important. The Veda is the supreme knowledge. It's Swata Pramana, it's self-proven. All these other things, if they disagree with the Veda, they're overridden by that. So we have to understand what authority means, right? Shabda means authority. Now, authority or Shabda Pramana, the proof that we get from Shabda, right, cannot overturn simple proof in terms of material things, simple proof that we have from our own experience, right? If the Veda says that the fire is cold, doesn't make the fire cold. But the Veda never says that a fire is cold. The Veda, obviously fire is hot, right? But our simple sense perception of putting our hand in the fire, we're burned. We know that the fire is hot. So through pratyaksha, even through anumana, right, ordinary material things can be understood. This Jyotisha is ordinary material stuff. It's an ordinary science that has to do with the material body. It has to do with this life. It has to do with where you're born and et cetera, all these sort of things. So therefore, it's a science which can be. It's not a spiritual science in that sense. Yeah. Okay. So the main important thing is like that. If we're going to accept something, some knowledge which is given to us, we're talking about knowledge, right? If we're going to accept some knowledge, we have to understand who the person is, what authority they have to give that knowledge. Yeah. So what exactly is the question about? Because I'm talking in generalities here like that. Somebody says, I want to know if I can marry that person. Then there's ways of judging whether it will be a good match or a bad match. Now it also says in that Shastra, even if you marry a person who astrologically it says is not going to be a good match, there are ways that you can alleviate that also. There's a prayaschitta that can be done like that. People forget that it's very, very rare. The perfect birth, the perfect chart, the perfect muhurta, the perfect time to do the sacrifice, it's all very, very rare. Perfect time is always very, very rare. Whenever you ask somebody, what's the best time to do this or not to do this, like that, it's always, well, it's good in this way, but it's bad in this way, So everything, there's no perfect auspicious time, right? So So Jyotisha is just about telling us, I mean, Muhurta is just about telling us approximately which is better time than and which is a worse time, but not necessarily the perfect time, like that. So similarly, it's the same thing with horoscopy, right? These are all not necessarily exact sciences. Yeah. But we rely on them. So it's ridiculous to say, it's not logical to say that, yeah, we fast on Ekadasi and we look on but we don't believe in Jyotisha. It's not logical. So is there a specific question about a specific aspect of Jyotisha?
I'm just curious about how accurate these people in the West who apparently these devotees went to see. And they said, some of them said they were speaking to departed souls who were giving them the knowledge and the information about the future. And that was very intriguing for me because I was thinking, how do they know so much things about people they don't even know or not related to so accurately?
There's no question in that statement.
Well, I was wondering how we would view that, given what you just said about Jyotish for being an exact science in Vedic, Vedic terms.
So once again, if I have absolute faith in a particular authority to tell me the truth, right? But how do we gain faith in an authority? We gain faith because we have some knowledge and we test that authority. And once we test that authority, then maybe we accept what that authority says. So perception, it's possible to have more perception than just the five senses that we were talking about. People talk about being able to perceive. In the scriptures, we read about people who could know their past lives, right? So we accept that it's possible. That it's possible to know things beyond this life. We accept that. But do we accept that that person knows that? That's the question. So yeah, as a general principle, we accept that people can know things beyond this life. We accept that as a general principle. As an exact understanding of what that person is saying, do we accept that person as an authority? Do we accept that that person's statement is coming from real knowledge that they're gaining from understanding something beyond normal sensory perception? That we have to make some, we have to make some determination like that. Maybe that person can prove to us that by so many ways, but also, as we stated in the first lecture, we have material senses, and the material senses can be fooled. We can commit mistakes. We have imperfect senses. We can commit mistakes. We are bound to that illusion. And if we tell other people that what we experienced or what we know is truth, even though it's based on mistakes, illusion, and imperfect senses, then we are cheating. So those four problems occur, and we have to be able to judge that. So it's all a matter of judgment. I'm not telling people not to have faith in certain authorities. I'm not saying that. What I'm telling people is don't have blind faith. Don't go to some New Age, seminar or something like that, and because the guy says that he's talked to your grandma, in another plane or something like that, and he knows a few things, he knows a few ways of tricking you into saying some things, and very general things that make you believe that he's able to contact somebody beyond this life, that you should accept that, right? I'm just saying, all I'm saying is trust but verify. You can trust, You can trust other authorities. You can trust authorities, but verify. Verify that they actually are authorities. Like that. If you gain faith in a particular authority, fine. That's up to you. That's up to every individual person. Everybody has to do that. I can't tell, you're telling me about something that you experienced that I have not experienced, that I have no idea about. So I can only just give you a general answer like that. Trust but verify. What else can I say?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. I think
Yeah.
Satya Kumar Nigri has had his hands up for some time now.
Yeah,
If,
I've got okay, so we got somebody talked about Vastu. Our teachings, the main goal is to reach God through different ways, like mantra, tantra, yantra, even though I myself do some mantras. For example, if I want to pray to my Istadevata Hanuman through tantra or yantra, where do I start? Well, if you don't know something, you need to approach an authority, somebody who knows those things, and learn from that person. In which book is these practices mentioned? Okay, so I suggest to you that it's better not to just learn from books. It's better to learn from actual teachers, but books are important also. Can I please explain about Hanuman worship? Okay, so Hanuman yantra and tantra and things like that. First of all, when you approach a teacher and you ask him, okay, I want to learn how to worship some tantra or yantra or something about Hanuman, like that. Okay, so first of all, the teacher is going to ask you, what is the purpose of this, and why do you want to learn this, and according to what Vaishnava ritualism is an ocean, according to what sampradaya, what sect do you want to learn those things? What is the type of worship that you want to do? So you have to find somebody who's an authority in that. Okay, so I don't know if that answered that question. Thank you.
Prabhu, Satya Kumar Nimai,
somebody's
he's
asking
got his
about
hands up.
Yeah, okay, so
And
somebody
he's had his hands up for some
unmute.
time now.
They can unmute. I'm just reading the text in the chat. Somebody's asking about Sadasati. Sadasati, you need to go to a qualified astrologer to ask that. I said I'm not a qualified astrologer, right? I said that I'm not qualified to teach in detail the vast majority of the subjects that we introduced here, right? I think I pointed that out in the first thing, but I'm able to give you an overview of it. If you want a detailed view of something, especially Jyotisha, you need to find an authorized Jyotishi and talk to him about it and learn from him. And about same thing about Sadasati, Astamashani, all these sort of things. Talk to a Jyotishi. And tarot, I don't know about tarot. Which one is correct? The lunar astrology or the solar astrology? I already covered that. I said both can come to a correct understanding, but it's not that Vedic astrology doesn't understand also lunar. There's a lunar panchangam and a solar panchangam in India also. So there's both is used. Departed souls. I think that was that same. Okay, so I think we finished with the chat. Was there somebody who wanted to ask another question? Is there anything else in the chat?
Oh, sorry, Hare Krishna Prabhu. I didn't post anything in the chat, but thank you for the lessons last week and for this week as well. It's very very transcendental. And so my question is, one disciple of Srila Prabhupada is very enthusiastic about creating a Varnashram college, and citing quotes by Srila Prabhupada that maybe you're familiar with those quotes, that 50% of Prabhupada's mission wasn't fulfilled in establishing Varnashram. And so the idea, as I can understand it from the college, is that there would be training for the Brahmanas, training for the Kshatriyas, training for the Vaishyas. I'm not sure exactly how that works for the Shudras, but for the different Varnas and ashrams. So my question is, what, from your understanding of the Vedas, what would what could a curriculum for the administrative class, the Kshatriyas, look like, considering where we are in terms of Kali Yuga and our ability and the various factors like that? What would a realistic practical curriculum for Kshatriyas look like, and how it might apply to fulfilling the 50% of Prabhupada's mission? And also maybe, I don't know if that would help, or to contrast it maybe with a curriculum for the training the Brahmanas. That's my question for
Okay, number one, first thing I would say is I don't think that anybody in ISKCON understands what Varnashrama means. Second, and even if they do, everybody is arguing about what it means. Second, I would seriously challenge the idea of what most people feel about Varnashram being implemented, right? First thing I do with anybody who wants to talk to me, especially from ISKCON, about Varnashram, I ask them, how many Varnas and how many ashramas are there? How many, there's 4 Varnas and 4 ashramas, and therefore there are how many different types of people in a Varnashram society? Can anybody answer that question for me right now? Okay, it's simple. It's simple math, guys. 4 Varnas, 4 ashramas.
Okay.
How many different types of people are there in that society? According to Vedic society, Varnashram, not Vedic, Varnashram. It's Varnashram society. How many different types of people would there be when there are 4 Varnas and 4 ashramas?
Is it 4 times 4?
No.
My maths.
Okay, does anybody else want to guess?
I think 4 types of people, Prabhu. Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya.
There's only 4 types of people. So the Brahmana, Kshatriya, and Vaishya and Sudra are all brahmacharis. Is that right? Does anybody else want to guess? Okay, somebody said 16, somebody said 4. There's 4 Varnas and 4 ashramas. There's 4 types of people, and there's 4 stages of life. How many different types are there? No, nobody understands anything about Varnashram if they can't answer this question. So please ask anybody who says to you they are interested in Varnashram, ask them that number 1 question. If they can't answer that question correctly, they don't know anything about Varnashram.
Prabhu, it's total 4 types into 4 varnas. So Brahmanas are going in their mode.
So there's Sudra sannyasis, is that correct?
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
Right.
No.
So I already said 4 times 4 is wrong. 4 is wrong. So there are 2 guesses. Would anybody else want to have another guess? See, you're just showing me how little everybody knows in ISKCON about Varnashram. When you say that there are 16 types of people, there are no Sudra sannyasis in the Varnashram system. Okay? The answer is very simple, right? I'll explain a little bit about it. Number 1, right? these varnas, they're according to, they have to do with modes of nature, right? They have to do with the gunas. They have to do with sattva guna, rajaguna, tama guna. They have to do with goodness, passion, and ignorance, and the predominance of in a person of those things. And they have to mainly do with the work that they do in a particular society. So in society, the original understanding of varnashram comes from the Rig Veda. Brahmanosya mukamasid bahu rajanyakritaha uru tarasyad vaishaha padbyam sudro ajayata. It's stated in the Purusha Sukta, right, which is from the 10th mandala, 90th sukta of the Rig Veda, that the society, the Veda Purusha, we can say the society is considered to be like a person. His head is the Brahmins. His arms are the Kshatriyas. His stomach is the Vaishyas. His feet are the Sudras. All these parts of the body are needed for the body to work correctly, right? The head does the thinking, the arms do the work, the fighting, right? The stomach produces the nourishment, gives us the energy for the nourishment, and the feet help us to walk everywhere, to go places. So this is an analogy. This is understanding the society. So what every society is like this. Do we agree? Does everybody agree? Right? Does somebody say that there isn't a society that has these different aspects to it? Every society has this. Now, when the society is ruled by the Kshatriyas, we call it a monarchy. When the society is ruled by the Vaishyas, we call it capitalism. When the society is ruled by Sudras, we call it communism. Right? These are different types of society, but all these people are in every society. There are intellectuals in every society. There are administrators and military people in every society. There are entrepreneurs, business people, people who own wealth and who create more wealth in every society. And there are the vast number of people are workers in every society. These are the four types of people in every society. That is what Varnashram is. Varnashram already exists in every society. Now, Vedic Varnashram doesn't exist in every society, but Varnashram exists in every society in the sense that there are Varnas. They are not integrated with the ashrams. If you want to integrate them with the ashrams, there's an idea that in the beginning of life, one should be in a student phase. Afterwards, one should go into a married phase, householder life. Then one can retire, and finally one can renounce. Whether one can retire and renounce depends upon the mode of nature that somebody is in. We see there are many people, they work until they die because they're so passionate that they will not take a day off. They're workaholics. You have some people who want to accumulate so much money, right? That right till the moment of death, they'll be working. You have other people who are unable to retire and think about the next life and to study because they're absorbed in sense gratification or whatever it is. Okay, so you have these different types of people. How do they interface with these ideas of the different parts of life? Right. A person who is a student, to be a student and to study very, very deeply normally requires somebody to have some control over their senses, right? Otherwise they get distracted. These people who are totally distracted by sense gratification, they don't end up having big, long academic careers and going to university and doing like that. They're distracted by that. They're distracted and they drop out of school and they just, whatever it is. Okay, so in the Vedic situation, that's why the higher class, or we can't really say it's higher or lower, higher in the sense that in the sense of the body, the head is higher than the feet, but the feet are just as important as the head in one sense, right? So we have the bulk of people in every society are workers, right? There are less people who are entrepreneurs. There are less people than that who are administrators, and there are very few people who are intellectuals, right? That is Varnashram. That is what Varnashram is about. Now, in the Shmiti section of the Vedangas, which we understood, in the Shmiti section like that, it talks about these things. Okay, so if we accept that these are not by birth, if we accept that these ideas are by our guna and by our karma, by our work, specifically by our work in society, where do we fit in society? Where do we work in society? Are you a worker? Are you a worker? We have to look at ourselves and say, are you a worker? Do you work for somebody else? Do you get paid a salary? Do you have to be there at 9 o'clock on Monday morning? Do you have to only leave at 5 p.m.? Are you a worker? Or are you independent? If you're a worker, you're a Sudra, right? That's the definition, right? If you're a business person and you own a business and you employ other people and you actually own land or do whatever like that, yeah, you can maybe say you're a Vaishya. If you're an administrator or a politician or a military person, but not the private, not the sergeant, if you're the top general, then maybe you can call yourself a Kshatriya, or a politician or an administrator like that. If you're an intellectual, then you can call yourself a Brahmin. Now, intellectuals in the West, in other cultures like that, they may have bad habits like smoking, drinking, eating meat, all these sort of things like that. So they're not like the Brahmins in India, but in terms of Varnashram, they're like Brahmins. The Indian system would be that only the persons who are, this is a Varnashram system. Varnashram system is not the Vaishnava system, believe me. The Vaishnava system is separate from the Varnashram system. So saying that we need Varnashram to practice Vaishnavism is not correct. There is no Vaishnava system that strictly follows Varnashram 100%. Right? Because in the Vaishnava system, the samskara is to purify everybody by Vaishnava Diksha, they become purified. In the Varnashram system, and the Vaishnava system is to purify everybody, they become qualified to worship God, they worship God, and then they go to God. They achieve God. All genders, all castes, all creeds, all types of people. That's what Pancharatra is about. In the Varnashram system, you have to go from life to life, and you have to make advancement from Sudra to Vaishya to Kshatriya to Brahman, and Brahman to Moksha, like that. That's the Varnashram system. It's a different system. So if somebody says we need Varnashram to practice Vaishnavism, I don't agree. I don't agree. We don't need Varnashram to practice Vaishnavism like that. If Vaishnavism tells us you're not this body, Varnashram tells you you are this body. These are diametrically opposed principles in spiritual life. Okay? So Varnashram is a social system, like communism, like monarchy, like capitalism. Varnashram is just another one like that. Now, the idea behind some people say, oh, we want Varnashram because it's better than communism, capitalism, monarchy. It's better than those things. Okay, maybe it's better than those things, depending on how you institute it. If you want to institute it, first thing you have to do is you have to know how many different people there are like that. So in the original Varnashram system, or the idea was that there was brahmacharis, grahastas, vanaprasthas, and sannyasis. For Brahmins, for people who are intellectuals, people in the mode of goodness, people whose main priority, the four purusharthas, the four goals of man, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, these are the goals of the different castes, the basic goals. Yeah, everybody has to have some sense gratification. Everybody has to have some money. Everybody has to, little bit. But the main goal of the Brahmin is moksha. The main goal of the liberation. The main goal of the Kshatriya is religiosity, dharma. The main goal of the Vaishya is making money, right? Increasing money, right? Wealth accumulation. The main goal of the Shudra is sense gratification. These are the four goals of human life, and they go with the four Varnas. If your main goal is sense gratification, you're a Sudra. If your main goal is economic development, you're a Vaishya. If your main goal is religiosity, material religiosity, right? Then you're a Kshatriya. If your main goal is liberation, then you're a Brahmin. That's why people say, oh, Vaishnavas are naturally Brahmins, because Vaishnavas, their main goal is liberation. Right? Okay, so already all Vaishnavas, their main goal is liberation. So what is everybody's a Brahmin? Do you have a society where everybody's a Brahmin, everybody's an intellectual? You say, oh, you're a Vaishnava, therefore you're automatically an intellectual. It's nonsense, right? It's nonsense. So first of all, if we say that these are the main goals, that's because the Brahmin is supposed to be predominantly in the mode of goodness, the Kshatriya in the mode of passion, the Vaishya mixed mode of ignorance and passion and ignorance, and the Sudra, the main mode is ignorance, because the main goal for the person in the mode of ignorance, mainly the goal of ignorance, is sense gratification. For the person in mixed ignorance and passion is making money. For the person who is right in the mode of passion is religiosity, and for the person in the mode of goodness predominantly is liberation. They're the main goals. So we understand now what the Purusharthas are, how they interface with the four Varnas. That's all described in the Smriti Shastras, okay? So now, then we say, okay, so so therefore we see, if we look in the Vedic scriptures, do we see any Kshatriyas or Vaishyas or Sudras that took sannyas? No, we don't see that. Even the Pandavas, when they went off, when they left the kingdom, when the kings leave the kingdom, they go to the forest. Sometimes they take the queens with them. They go to the forest. That's vanaprastha. That's not sannyas. So we never see the Kshatriyas taking sannyas. There are no Kshatriya sannyasis. There are no Vaishya sannyasis. There are certainly no Sudra sannyasis. So before somebody says, I want to take sannyas, are you a Brahmin? Are you an intellectual? Are you able to take sannyas? If you let people become sannyasis and they're not Brahmins, you're going to have problems. If Sudras take sannyas, you're going to have problems. So first of all, in the word varna, varnashrama, varna comes first, ashrama comes second. So you have to understand somebody's varna first before you can say that with what ashrama they go into. Does everybody follow my train of thought here? Right? So a brahmana can be a brahmachari. He can control his senses. He can be a grahastha. He can be a vanaprastha, and he can be a sannyasi. A kshatriya can be a brahmachari, because Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas go to the Gurukula in the traditional system, right? Sudras don't go. So Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas go to the Gurukula, so they can control their senses enough to spend 12 years or 25 years with the guru studying, right? Okay, so they are able to do that. So they can be brahmacharis. They can be grahastas. Everybody can be a grahasta, by the way. Okay, so they can be grahastas. Do Vaishyas usually become vanaprasthas and sannyasis? No, not usually. Usually Vaishyas, they just work. They're entrepreneurs. They like to work. As I said, they just continue to work. They like to, they don't want to retire or renounce. They just want to continue. Their main goal is economic development. So Vaishyas usually brahmacharis and grihastas. For Sudras, there's only one varna. There's only one ashrama, excuse me. There's only one ashrama, grihastha. Because when the Sudra gets maturity, when he gets to the point of, when the Sudra attains puberty, right? His senses are uncontrolled. He wants sense gratification. He's in the mode of ignorance predominantly. Therefore, he cannot be a brahmachari after that point. So we're talking about human beings. The brahmachari, vanaprastha, brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyasi is all after puberty. Before puberty, people are children. The people have children. When they reach puberty, then you can see, can they control the senses like that? Then he can be a brahmachari. There's no, one time I was at, some initiation, and one guru was asking the person, are you, what's the regular principles? He said, no illicit sex. And the kid was only, 7 years old, 8 years old or something, who was getting initiated. And so the guru said, do you know what that means? And he said, no, I don't really know what it means. So you can't, before puberty, you don't know what these things are, right? After puberty, you become a real human being, and then you You know all those sort of things. You have the ability to either control or not control your senses, right? Children are just more like animals, you know, working on instinct. Okay, so all right, so there's only one ashram for a Sudra. There's two ashrams for Vaishyas. There's 3 ashrams for Kshatriyas, and there's 4 ashrams possible ashrams for Brahmins. 4, 3, 2, 1, 10. There are 10 combinations of varnas and ashrams. That's the Vedic system. That's the answer to the question that I asked. No one in ISKCON answers that question correctly. So therefore, nobody knows the first thing about Varnashram, right? So okay, there are people who talk about Varnashram, but they don't know what they're talking about. So first of all, we have to know that. We have to know that there are 10 different types of people in the Varnashram society. All right, now the question is, how do we designate those people? I just said, Sudra, Kalo Sudra Sambhavan. In the Shastra, it also says everybody's born a Sudra in Kali Yuga. Okay, so we're in Kali Yuga. Everybody's born a Sudra, right? So everybody starts out as a Sudra. All right, fine. You're all children, you're all animals. But okay, so then what do you do? What you do with your life shows me what you are, what Varna you are, like that. If you become an intellectual, if you become an administrator, if you become an entrepreneur, fine. And you have other people working for you. You have Shudras working for you. You have workers working for you. Then you belong to those classes, like that. It's that easy. It's that simple. Do we need a college specifically to teach people what I just taught you in 5 minutes? No. Are we teaching people all around the world to fulfill those roles in society already? Yes. So what exactly does it mean, a Varnashram college? What exactly does it mean to establish Varnashram? Varnashram is established. The ashrams may not be established exactly, but the Varnas are natural in society, according to the Veda. Brahmanosya makamasid bahu rajanyakutaha uru tarasyad vaishap padbyam sudro jayata. That's mentioned in the Veda. Okay, so Veda Swata Pramana. Every society has those things. Every society has those types of people. So what exactly do you want to do? What you want to teach people to be intellectuals? Do you want to teach people to be administrators? Do you want to teach people to be entrepreneurs? Do you want to teach people to be workers? I'm just really vague on the concept here of what a Varnashram college would be, what it actually means. I know what a college does. People who go to a college, they want higher education. Maybe they want to be intellectuals. Maybe they want to be entrepreneurs, you know, and they study different courses. So the guy who wants to be a big time Vaishya, he gets his MBA, you know, he gets a Master of Business Administration. Another guy who wants to be an intellectual, he gets his PhD in, you know, his Doctor of Philosophy. Somebody wants to be a doctor, you know. So I'm just really unclear exactly what first step is know what Varnashram means, what Varna means, and ashram, and how they interface, right? How there can be these, traditionally there are these 10 different types of people. And then second, have a means of distinguishing who is what Varna, because you have to know who is what Varna first before you can say to them, you're not eligible to be a sannyasi. You're not eligible to be a vanaprastha, you know, maybe, right? You're not eligible to be brahmachari. Yeah, you should get married, or you should, you know, be single, or whatever you have to do, you know, but you shouldn't be any of those things because you're not qualified, according to your Varna, you're not qualified for this ashram, right? So until and unless there's an understanding of those things, how can you talk about Varnashram at all? That's my question. That's my question, seriously. If anybody in ISKCON wants to ask, I'll tell you a story, because so a lot of us go on Facebook. I don't like to go on very much, but I went on Facebook. I have a Facebook account. All right, so I'm on Facebook. somebody from some ISKCON devotee is asking, let's talk about Varnashram. Prabhupada wanted Varnashram. 50% of my mission is Varnashram. Let's do Varnashram like that. I said, okay, are you interested in Varnashram or are you interested in a farm ashram? Because from what I see, most people who talk about Varnashram in ISKCON, they say, let's make a farm. But making a farm isn't Varnashram. Lord Krishna had a capital in Dwarka. It was a huge city. Dwarka is a huge city. Lord Krishna had this city. That was Varnashram also. There were prostitutes even there, and they were great devotees of the Lord. Okay, but that was Varnashram. So if we read in the scriptures about Varnashram, in Varnashram there's prostitutes. In Varnashram there's cities. It's not a farm. It's not just a farm, right? So just thinking that Varnashram means when we join ISKCON, we should all give everything up and go out to the country. Like there was some TV show with two people who were very rich. They went off and they bought a place in the country and they went out to the country, you know, to live in the country. And they were unhappy because they grew up in a city. Today, in today's society, in today's world, it's very rare to find people, you know, if you say, well, let's just look at the Shastras, let's give every ISKCON devotee an acre of land and a cow, and they can become subsistence rice farmers. Is that really what Prabhupada wanted? Is that what Prabhupada wanted? Is that what Varnashram means? I don't think so, right? So let's now talk about what it means in modern society to have a Varnashram-based society. It means, first of all, knowing what Varna means, knowing what ashram means, knowing how ashram is dependent on Varna, and knowing how to distinguish what Varna you're in, what Varna other people are in, like that. And then everybody has to agree on that too. If I say, I'm not a Sudra, I work for a living in a factory, but I'm not a Sudra. That's denial. That person is in denial. If he works for a living and his boss tells him when to come and when to go, like that person is a Sudra, like that. So I'm on Facebook and I'm telling this to this guy. Maybe you're just interested in farm ashram, and that guy's saying, yeah. What we should do is you should be part of a farming community, and that's what Prabhupada wanted. I said, but that's not Varnashram. That's not really Varnashram. And he said, okay. And I said, well, look, I'm in Hawaii. It's a beautiful place, And he says, great, we can have a farm in Hawaii. So what do you mean we? I already have a place in Hawaii. I have half-acre land, and I have fruit trees, and I have flowers, and I have my deities, and I offer the flowers and the fruits to the deities, like that. And I have a half-acre of land. Now, I could use some help. I said to this guy, right? And he goes, oh, great. So what we should do is we should take your place in Hawaii, we should sell it. And with the money, we should buy a farm. I said, no, I don't want to do that. I'm the owner of the place. I don't want to sell it like that. But if you want to do Varnashram, me as the owner, right? As the king of my little piece of land, right? I will invite you to come. I will pay your airfare. I will pay for your clothes. I will pay for your food. I will get you on Hawaii State Medical, right? I will make sure that you have everything like that. But you have to come and be my slave. That's what I told this guy. And he goes, no. You should sell your property, and with the money, we can make a farm. And that can be Varnashram. And I said, no. I've already got Varnashram. If you want to come and help me, I'm the owner. I'm the king. I'm the person who owns the land. I need help. You come and be my slave. All you have to do is sign a piece of paper saying, I'm your slave, and I will look after everything. I'll feed you. I'll clothe you. I'll get you medicine, everything. I'll pay your airfare. Come on. He goes, no. I said, then you're not serious about Varnashram. You're not serious about Varnashram. You don't know what Varnashram is, and you're not serious about Varnashram. So unless and until the majority of ISKCON devotees, or whoever wants to say that they want Varnashram, unless and until the majority of people who want Varnashram say, I'm prepared to be a Sudra, I'm prepared to be a slave to other people, right? To enter into servitude of other people like that, there'll never be Varnashram in that sense, like that. Now, already in modern society, we have people who are workers, and in a sense, they're slaves. You're a slave to your credit card. You're a slave to the banks. You're a slave to your mortgage. You're a slave. We have certain servitude that we have. We have certain debts. In the Vedic civilization, there are also debts, and there are ways of getting out of those debts. So we have certain debts that we have in modern society too. We know that we need to make money, so we know we have to have a job. We have to have education to get a good job and make good money, and all these sort of things. We have to have. That's why we want our children to have a good education. That's why all these sort of things. That's going on in every society. So how is the ISKCON Varnashram College doing something which is not already being done in the rest of society? ISKCON would be good, or any spiritual organization that talks about Vedic culture or Vedic civilization or Vedic Varnashram would be good to introduce the ideas of ashrams, right, of different stages of life, but to fully understand the qualities of varnas, that different people are going to not be in all these ashrams. And if they should, what we should teach people is to realize their potential, to realize where they fit in society, and to try to fit in that society. And if they're a square peg, don't try to fit themselves in a round hole. So there are different levels of society, and aptitude tests, self-testing, and this is great. I think it's wonderful. If people really want Varnashram, then what they have to do is formulate what they mean by Varnashram, and then they have to sit down and they have to try to help other people who believe in their ideas to understand where they fit in that society. That's all. That's all there is to it. It's not a difficult thing, So when you ask about what should be the curriculum, there's so many things to talk about before the curriculum. If you don't know what the goal is, how can you talk about the process to get to the goal? First of all, we have to understand tattva, then hita, then purushartha. So tattva and purushartha, we have to understand. We have to understand where we're at now. We have to understand what's the utopia, the Varnashram utopia that we're talking about. What are the principles of that? And then we can understand how to get there. So you're asking me, how do we get there? I don't know. I don't know who you are. I don't know who you're talking to, what your audience is, and I don't know what your utopian goal is. And you don't know what your utopian goal is because I asked you about it, and nobody knows even the first basic principle of it. So, I'm just trying to work this thing out logically here, like that. So when I see that there's somebody who actually understands some of these principles, then maybe we could have a discussion. And my other question is, since Vaishnavism and Varnashram are really two systems, what is the use of that? What is the use of that? We're already, all of us are already a part of society, right? All of us are already a part of society. We live in society. We have to interface with society. ISKCON doesn't have its own little country somewhere, right? If ISKCON had a little country somewhere with a king and a parliament and a judiciary and a police force and a navy and an army, and then maybe we could just go there and we could be part of that society. But it's not. We have to fit into whatever country we're living in, right? Like that. So we have to interface with that society. So how do we interface with society? So I would say, first of all, determine. Everybody who's interested in Varnashram, first of all, determine where you're at in Varnashram. What's your Varna? What's your Varna? What's your ashrama? Is that suitable? Are you in a suitable ashrama for your Varna? Right? Figure out your Varna, what place you have in society. Head, arms, stomach, feet. Where are you? Most people are feet. Most societies, and that's what the Shastras say too. Sudra Sambhavan. Everybody's born in Kali Yuga Sudra, like that. So most people are workers in society, in modern society, like that. Okay, so we're all Sudras, or so then how do we live our lives? Like that. But we're Vaishnava Sudras, right? We're socially, we're in that class of the feet class, like that. But spiritually, we're able to, worship the Lord according to Pancharatra, even Sudras, even women, even Doesn't matter what caste, creed, gender, everything. Pancharatra accepts everybody and teaches them how to worship the Lord. So that's what Vaishnavism is. And that's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said what? ISKCON is a Gaudiya branch of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Gaudiya Vaishnavism's founder is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu say? Naham vipro nachanadvati napi vaishyo nashudro naham vani nachagriapati novarashto yatirva kintu pro jannakila paramananda punamitabdir gopi bhartahu parakabalayo dasa dasa anudasaha. He said that. Chaitanya, who is the founder of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself said, I'm not a Brahmin, I'm not a Kshatriya, I'm not a Vaishya, I'm not a Sudra. I'm not a Brahmachari, I'm not a Grihastha, I'm not a Vanaprastha, I'm not a sannyasi. What am I? I'm the eternal servant of the servant of the servant of the gopis, of servants of Krishna. I'm the eternal servant of Krishna. And that's what Prabhupada did. When he came, first thing he said, you are not that body. You're a spirit soul, and that spirit soul is an eternal servant of God. That is the number one thing that we always have to remember in Vaishnavism. All the rest of it, social system, is a material social system called Varnashram, maybe we feel that that's a good system according to the way they did it in India thousands of years ago or hundreds of years ago, or maybe it needs to be updated somewhat for the West, for different places in the world. Okay, that's another question like that. But the ultimate thing is we're eternal servants of God, and we're not actually all these things. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rejected when Ramananda Roy said to him, "What's the best thing?" He said to Ramananda Roy, first thing he said, following the duties of Varnashram is the best thing. Who rejected that? He rejected it in this discussion with Ramananda Roy, and he rejected it when he went to Udupi to talk to the Madhvas. Both times, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu talked to these people who were Vaishnavas, and their first answer was following the system of Varnashram is the best way. And both times he said, I reject that. That's not the best way. Okay? So when you say Varnashram, we should have Varnashram, I say to you exactly what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said. It's not the best way. It's not the best Varnashram. Varnashram is not the best way for Vaishnavas. Now, if you say, okay, but Prabhupada said that he wanted this, what exactly did he want? Nobody seems to know, right? Nobody seems to know. Everybody argues about it. Therefore, if you're really serious about following things that Prabhupada said that he wanted, right, then please, the intellectuals in ISKCON get together and come up with a paper and say, look, this is what we believe Prabhupada wanted. This is the goal. Remember what I said? If you want to get somewhere, you have to first of all know where you're going. Purushartha, right? In the beginning, we have to know where we're at. This is where we're at. We have to know where we want to go, Tattva and Purushartha. Then we can understand how to get there. The process for getting there. So you're asking me, right? Whoever asked the question, asking me to say something about how we should get there. What's the curriculum for Kshatriyas in a Varnashram college? Sorry, that cannot be answered without, first of all, understanding who we are and what our goal is, our utopian society goal. So if anybody's interested to discuss this more, we can discuss it more, and we can point. I've only quoted a few things from scripture, specifically that I wanted that quote from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at the end. But the point is, there are many things in the scripture, and they can be discussed. But until we understand Tattva and Purushartha, until we understand where we're at and where we want to get to, we can never find the path. We will never find the path, ever. Okay, so that's about Varnashram. Is there anything about anything? Any other questions? Did Prabhupada say that about 50%? Because did he say that because devotees were not chanting? Okay, I am not here to second guess Prabhupada or to read his mind. So we can only guess. We can only guess why he said to establish Varnashram. Since we don't understand what he meant by Varnashram and we don't know where we're at the moment, we can't guess, right? So if we, in other words, in order to guess why he said it or what he meant by it, we have to really know what it is that he actually said, what it actually means. Establish Varnashram. What does that mean? What does that mean? There's also letters where Prabhupada said, you are not qualified even to read Manusmriti. And he quoted some things from Manusmriti, but there are many things that he didn't quote from Manusmriti. So there are some devotees who say, oh, we should take the Manusmriti, that's the quote, that's the law book of man. This is the mistake that the British did when they went to India. Okay, many mistakes foreigners made when they went to India. When the foreigners went into India, they said, oh, the Indologists, they said, oh, so there's these different Shmitis. And they talk about societies and actually different parts of India, which were different countries in those days, right? And so somebody in South India was following Apastamba and somebody else over here was following Manu. And we don't even know whether people followed Manu to the T or to the letter anyway, like that. It may have just been suggestion that this is what we should do, like that, right? And so the British said, we should, whatever law we institute in India, because now we're ruling India, let's institute the law, and the Hindus in India will be happy if we tell them you should follow Manusmriti. So we should put everything, all the laws that we have for India should be based on Manusmriti. So there are many laws in India which are still based on Manusmriti, and in fact you have separate law for Hindus and for non-Hindus in India still, and they're trying to get a common law now. People are trying to update it and say, no, we should have one common law for everybody. So I don't know if people know any of this stuff, but the British got it completely wrong, saying that everything should be based on Manusmriti. And Prabhupada said the same thing. He said, you Westerners, you're not even qualified to read Manusmriti. Has anybody ever read Manusmriti? In the beginning, it says you have to be this, this, and this. And if you look in the 10th chapter, it says, no, only if you're born like this and this and this, and then you can't even read it. You're not even, I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody, whether they're of South Asian descent or not. I don't know anybody who's qualified, according to what Manu says, to even read the book. Okay? And Prabhupada said the same thing in a letter. He said, you're not qualified to even read. At the same time, he did quote some principles from Manusmriti, like that. Maybe some of those principles can be useful in some societies. Maybe some of those principles are not useful in other societies, like that. For example, I'll just give you an example. Very controversial topics in ISKCON about women, right? Now today, if you go to Afghanistan and you're a woman in Afghanistan, you cannot go to school. Why can you not go to school? Because their fundamentalist idea in Afghanistan is that women should never have any sort of freedom. They should never be independent. They should never any type of freedom. Even to walk outside the house, they have to go with a male relative. Saudi Arabia, similar situation. So there are some fundamentalist Islamic ideas like this, Sharia law, whatever it's called, right? Where they say we shouldn't educate women because why? If you get educated, right? We all know education leads to the ability to get a job, to earn money. And if you have money in this world, you can be independent from other people, right? If you have no money, then you're dependent on other people in modern world, right? So, okay, so if I get educated, then I can get a job, then I can I get money, then I can be independent, right? So therefore, to stop people from being independent, stop women from being independent, they should have no job, which means they should have no education, and therefore they shouldn't go to school. So one principle in Varnashram might be, according to Manu, that women should never be independent. So in order to make women not independent, we should do the same thing as they do in Afghanistan. Women shouldn't go to school. Now, that's difficult because most of the countries we live in mandate that women have to go to school, right? So unless you have your own little country where women don't go to school, called Afghanistan, right? And unless you introduce Sharia law, right, you're not going to be able to follow that principle of Manusmriti, right? So is that principle from Manusmriti useful in today's society, in modern the UK or wherever you are in the world, anywhere outside of Afghanistan? No, not really. So some of these principles that are there in the Dharma Shastras, right, may be useful in medieval India, right? Or they may be, maybe even somebody will admit that maybe we can say they might be useful if the whole world became like Afghanistan, right? But how useful are they today in modern countries around the world with modern devotees who are educated, right? Who are not being supported by the king and by the Vaishyas and whatever like that. So Varnashram is not a simple thing. It's not a simple thing. It's a social system, right? And if you want to introduce certain medieval aspects of it, it may not be possible in today's world. Okay, so what did Prabhupada actually want? What did Prabhupada actually want? I think that his principles that he talked about of simple living and high thinking or spiritual thinking, simple living and spiritual thinking are very nice. That's very nice. If we can have a Vaishnava society based on simple thinking, simple living, right? Simple living and spiritual thinking. But what simple living means in India, medieval India, and what simple living means in modern UK or modern Western society may be something completely different, right? Somewhat different, right? So therefore, there's this concept of Kala Patra Desha, right? There in the Shastras, is that there are different, because what we're talking about is social. We're talking about social science here. We're not talking about spiritual things. This is social science, right? So how to construct the utopian society. That's what we're talking about, right? And people have been trying to do this since time immemorial. And people have come up with different ideas of what utopia would be. The Athenian democracy, where every man has a vote, like that. The ancient Greeks thought this was utopia, right? Like that. But women couldn't vote, right? So all these things have to be worked out. So according to Manu, right? According to Manu, all foreigners are Sudras. But if we go throughout Southeast Asia, we find that Hinduism and Vaishnavism spread all the way to China. And the biggest Vishnu temple in the world is not even in India. It's in Cambodia. And it was built by a Cambodian Kshatriya king and staffed with Cambodian Brahmin priests, right? But if you go to India and say that to people today, they'll say, no, Cambodians, according to Manu, Cambodians are all Sudras, right? So how can there be a Cambodian Kshatriya or a Cambodian Vaishya or a Cambodian Brahmin? But if we go there, we see the biggest Vishnu temple in the world, Angkor Wat. It's Parama Vishnu Loka is what it was called in Sanskrit. The Buddhist name is Angkor Wat. So that is the greatest, that's the biggest Vishnu temple in the world. So we need to broaden our minds a little bit about the Vedic civilization, about Vedic culture, and about Vedic society and social, especially when talking about social issues. So these are all social things. And ultimately, the idea is that the idea of Varnashram is to have the best social system where everybody in that social system worships God, worships Krishna, worships Vishnu. Okay, right. So are we following Daivi Varnashram? Okay, so Daivi Varnashram is a slogan that Prabhupada, it's a compound that Prabhupada created, like plenary portion or something. It's a slogan that he made up like that. Daivi Varnashram means spiritual Varnashram. Varnashram is supposed to be spiritual, right? The idea in Manu says that simply by following this social system, everybody can worship Vishnu, like that. Okay, so that's the idea of people who want to introduce things from Manusmriti, is all the Smriti Shastras, because they're written by they're written by people who are Vaishnavas or whatever. They write these things for their society, right? In India in medieval times, right? They write their society and they dedicate it to Vishnu. So great, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. So Daivi Varnashram means simply Varnashram means to have a society which is pointed towards Krishna or Vishnu. Fine, that's fine. ISKCON is already a society which is pointed towards Vishnu and Krishna, worshipping Krishna. That's already there, like that. So anyway, Varnashram is a vast topic, and we're not gonna get even scratch the surface of it here today. But it is a social science, and people are more interested in spiritual science. So another thing that I would say is that it's probably a good idea is that when religions get bigger, when sects get bigger, we see that instead of simply trying to teach everything to the followers of the movement, right, or the sect like that, is that you can farm out these things. We don't need devotees to teach people how to do business. We don't need devotees, you don't need to get an MBA, you don't need a, Varnashram college, okay? You can go to a proper college and get a proper MBA, right? You don't need to learn math in a ISKCON Gurukul. You can go to a school and learn mathematics, okay? So why should Vaishnavas spend their precious life and time and efforts to teach material subjects to people, even if they're other Vaishnavas, right? Is beyond me, like that. Mostly when religions are very big, what they do is they have a Sunday school. They have a curriculum, they have a type of school where they teach spiritual things to their children. And then the material things are taught at regular school. So if you're a Jew, you want your child to get its bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah or something like that. So they have to learn a certain amount of the Torah. They have to learn Hebrew. So they go to a special school just for that, which isn't taught in the regular school. But all the academics and all the reading, writing, and arithmetic that is normal to learn is taught in the regular school. What's wrong with that? No problem. Okay, so is there a need for a Varnashram college to teach Vaishnavas to be an MBA? No, because there's already colleges teaching MBA, right? So what do we need to teach people? We need to teach people the spiritual science, not material social science. There are lots of institutes all around the world that teach material spiritual social science. Now, if you say we have a special social science, like the people in Afghanistan say, the Taliban, they say we have Sharia law and we need to teach people that, right? That's our social system. So if you think that you want to teach Manu, Shmiti, Shastra, Sharia type, Leviticus type, Old Testament type law to people, right? Then have a college for that if you want to do that. If you think that that's useful. If you think that a lot of those things should be taught, but the principles need to be updated or changed because they're in different countries, that's also would be my suggestion, right? But before you do that, you have to understand what your goal is. What's your goal? Is your goal Afghanistan? Is that your utopia? A theocratic state like Iran or Afghanistan or Saudi Arabia? Is that your idea, but based on Vaishnavism? Is that your utopia? It maybe that's your utopia, right? Or is it just like society like we have today, right? But we are Vaishnavas and we worship the Supreme Lord, Krishna, Vishnu, and somehow or other, all the material subjects and the material social aspects we deal with in the most Krishna conscious way we can, like that. So what do you mean by Daivi Varnashram? I don't know, because we can't say what Daivi Varnashram is because we can't say what Varnashram is. So until and unless somebody gives me a definition of what they mean by Varnashram, what's their goal, right? Because as far as I see, there are many people who just want Taliban-esque Afghanistan. They want something like Saudi Arabia but based on the Vedic principle, based on Dharma Shastras, like Manu. Is that what people want? Is that what people want? Is that what Prabhupada wanted? I don't know. It doesn't sound right to me, you know? So if somebody we can discuss it. There maybe theocracy is the way to go. Maybe that's what people in ISKCON want. Maybe they want to turn Mayapur into its own little country and theocracy and have a supreme leader and whatever. Maybe that's what they think Varnashram is. I don't know. So because we can't define what Varnashram is, we can't say what Devi Varnashram is. Devi Varnashram sounds better than Varnashram to me, because Varnashram is a material social system. If you add the word Devi to it, it means a spiritual version of the material system. So how much making that material social system spiritual changes it? For example, does it mean that women the girls and women get educated or not? If they do get educated, doesn't that mean that we go against the principle that they should never be independent, etc., etc., etc.? Now, by the way, to all of you out there who think, well, why are you talking about women being independent? Yeah, Sudras are also not independent. Sudras are, the bulk of society are slaves. In medieval Europe, they were called serfs. Serfs it's just a name for slave, basically. You have to do what the baron or the duke or whatever of your county or the king, what he said. He would say, you have to do this and you have to give me this much tax, and you get to work the land. Maybe you don't even own the land, right? If you're not a Vaishya, you don't own the land. You just work the land and you make some crops, and you have to give a certain amount to the king, and that's it. That's your lot. You're a slave, and you can't leave. You don't have any say about it, like that. So when people tell me that they're willing to give up all their independence, then I'll believe that they're interested in this type of Varnashram system, right? And that's really what we're talking about. But Vaishnavas, maybe there are Vaishnavas out there who say, yeah, I know that I'm not independent. Right? I'm a spirit soul and I'm a servant of the Lord. And if it's the Lord's plan for me to be a slave, right, then I'll just be a slave, because I understand that this is not a spiritual thing. This is a material thing. This is a material place in society. So therefore I'll do it like that. So there may be people out there who want to do that and institute that type of society, that they have theocracies like in Saudi Arabia and Afghanistan or Iran. So if there are people who want to do that, they can please form a small group and show the example to the rest of us about how that's a better way to live, or a more Krishna conscious way to live, or more Vaishnava way to live. And if they do that, and they can do that actually, then it will catch on. If they can't do that, if they can't show us an example of what would be better than what we have already as a social system, which is, Western liberal democracy, basically, right? In most cases, right? If they can't show us a better social system, then why should we adopt it, right? If nobody can show you an example that works of a better social system, if they have a social system where every thief gets his hand chopped off, and which is there in Leviticus, in the Old Testament, in Manu, in the Quran, all those books in the Sharia law, all those books have those sort of punishments. If you think that that's going to make you a better society, and if you're willing to buy into that, and you can already buy into it if you want, you can just get on a plane and fly to one of those countries like Saudi Arabia, and you can live that life right now if you want. But of course, it won't be based on Vaishnavism. So if you want to have a type of state like that based on Vaishnavism, fine, go ahead. Show us that is better. That's great. And so I think as far as Varnashram is concerned, what is Devi Varnashram? What is Varnashram? People have to sit down and formulate it. Even Marx wrote his thesis on communism. We have Socrates and those sort of people who wrote about society. So let's see somebody write something about that makes sense, about Varnashram and about Devi Varnashram, and then put it into practice and show us that it's better. before
Hare
all the rest of us have to you know, agree to or want to agree or not to agree to follow it. Yeah.
Is it okay if you can share your email address and then they can contact you via email? Is that okay?
Sure. I did before.
Okay.
But I will put it
Because I can
again
get more hands up.
in the group chat.
Yeah.
Keshavachari at gmail.com. And of course, you know, if anyone has a question or comment, you can post it to the WhatsApp group and I'll see it there. But if there's other subjects and things like that, some things that perhaps I know more about than these subjects, because this is just an introduction and a framework that I've suggested here. And like I said, I'm not a Jyotishi. If people want to learn Pancharatra, I can teach that. If people want to learn a little bit about Vedic chanting, I can teach that. You know, like that, a little bit. Okay, a little bit of Sanskrit, you know, which I'm not an expert, but you know, beginner Sanskrit, I can teach some things. But other things, I would refer you off to other people who are experts in teaching those subjects, if anybody's interested. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much for your workshop, Prabhu. It's been amazing. I mean, both of the sessions been so insightful, and it's been an honor to have you. So really, from the bottom of my heart, I wanted to thank you, Prabhu, so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Om Namo